We are back with more NBA coverage. In this one, I will be covering action from March 16th to this current date. To start out with the Hawks, they went an even 4-4 over this span, losing their very first matchup against the Nets on March 16th before ripping off 3 straight wins against the Hornets by 32 in a game in which Trae Young dropped 31 points and 8 assists against the Hornets. And managed to do all this on an efficient shooting night of 11 of 20 from the field, along with 5 threes. Jayson Daniels also added in 22 points, 7 assists, 7 rebounds, and 3 steals on 10 of 12 shooting from the field. And Zachary Rizalshe, in 24 minutes, had 21 points and 8 boards on 7 of 15 shooting and 5 threes as well. They, as a team, had relatively good shooting splits all around, and quite frankly, they had a clean basketball game, managing to log just 10 turnovers as a team compared to a much higher amount on the Hornets end. They also were able to control the glass as well. In the next matchup, they would beat the Warriors by 9 in what was a truly weird game in my opinion. And then on the 23rd, they would beat the depleted 76ers by 13 points, with Trae Young putting up 28 and 12. They went on a 2-game losing streak by 7 to the Rockets and then to the Heat by 10 on March 27th before getting one of the better wins in this time, beating the Bucks 145 to 124. Now, granted, once I detail what happened with the Bucks roster, it makes a little more sense. But even then, as currently constructed, they are a strong team. So the fact that they were able to blow them out by 21 points is astonishing. Keep in mind, too, this is with Trae Young having 19 points and 19 assists on 4 of 16 shooting from the field on his end. From that standpoint, it wasn't an efficient ball game. But to have 19 assists as just one player on the court, the lead point guard, to just 2 turnovers, that helped them in more ways than one. Other people were able to contribute from there on. You had Zachary Rizalshe put up 36 points on 12 of 21 shooting and 5 threes. You had Jayson Daniels have another 22-point outing with 6 assists, 9 rebounds, and now 5 steals. And then you had Georges Niang in 15 minutes off the bench put up 17 points on 6 of 11 shooting, along with 4 threes. In this game, they outpaced the Bucks with the amount of threes that they made, and they were able to buy themselves extra possessions at will, getting 10 more rebounds and 12 more overall attempts from the field. Especially on the offensive side of the ball as well. 9 more offensive rebounds for the Hawks in this one. They were able to dominate in any way you can think of. In the paint, out in transition, and especially just on defense. Though, yes, the 124 points won't tell the whole story. They were able to convert off of every single opportunity they got. That went a long way for them. And then to open up April, they lost to the Trailblazers by the score of 127 to 113 just yesterday. Now in this one, Trae Young had 29 points and 15 assists on 7 of 20 shooting, which isn't necessarily the best. Still, they were in it for this much time. Jayson Daniels with yet another 22-point game. And then Vidkreshi also added in 13 points on 5 of 7 shooting off the bench with 7 boards as well. Still, again, I'll get the Trailblazers side later on. They didn't stand a chance with those kinds of production from their players. And especially with this kind of discrepancy from 3, just 21.9% from deep. You can't possibly expect to win a ball game like that. I don't know, like if you're a fan of that team and you see them losing like that, but then you feast your eyes on that. You can't be surprised at all. So definitely a tough way to go out still. With that being said, they are currently the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference and are in the play-in with 7 more games, or I guess 6 for some teams now, left in the season. The Hawks have a great chance of easily dropping down to 10. Easily. So they're definitely going to want to go on some positive streak of winning. Most teams honestly are, especially if you land in the spot of the play-in. Because every single one of these teams in the play-in have a below 500 record. Interestingly enough. Which is kind of crazy to think about. But I guess this kind of madness this late is why the play-in has now become a permanent staple of the league as we draw closer and closer to the end of the regular season. Alright, moving on to the Celtics, and in this stretch of time, they went on to win 7 straight, continuing a win streak of 9. Now making them, with all that has happened, the hottest team in the league right now. They won their back-to-back against the Nets on March 18th, or the series against the Nets, with a score of 104-96, as Kristaps Porzingis had 25 points and 13 boards in this one. Then they got a 22-point win against Utah. No surprise there at all. They would face off against the Trailblazers on March 23rd and win by 13, with Jayson Tatum putting up 39-9. They then won against Sacramento in Sacramento by 18. This Suns game I did watch live, and yeah, the Suns they crumbled so early on. I mean, yes, the first quarter they tried their best and they crept back into it. It was a 42-38 first quarter, and then yeah, we saw exactly why the Celtics are reigning champions and why the Suns now currently are in danger of losing out on the play-in at this point. This is how bad it's gotten down there for them, but the focus here is on the Celtics, who won 132-102. They shot a combined 50.6% from the field, 42.3% from deep with 22 three-pointers made, and also 90.9% from the free throw line. They had more offense. They had more total rebounds. They were relatively clean, and even still, a major difference in points off of turnovers also ended up getting the job done for them. Their next match would be a face-off against the Spurs, in which they also won, not surprisingly, by 10, with Jayson Tatum putting up 29 points, 8 assists, and also 10 rebounds on 10 of 22 shooting. For whatever reason, Luke Kennard added a 15.16 rebound game off the bench in 31 minutes, and Drew Holiday had 21 points and 6 rebounds and assists on 8 of 12 shooting, along with 5 threes. Then their last matchup against the Grizzlies on March 31st, I ended up watching. I did miss some semblance of it, and it looked for a while like the Grizzlies were They were down by a pretty large margin for a while. Then I get in there and noted the Grizzlies are trying their hardest to storm back into it. But a 48-32 overall run would be the Grizz' undoing. And the Celtics were able to win this game 117-103. with Al Horford leading the way in this one. No Jaylen Brown either. Just a great collective effort by this squad, as Horford had 26 points and 6 threes. Jayson Tatum had 25 points and 14 rebounds. Derek White had 14 points and 10 assists. And also, Porzingis had 19 and 5 on 7-14 shooting with 3 threes. Currently, the Celtics sit as the second best team in the Eastern Conference. And with that win against the Grizzlies, for the first time ever in their franchise history, they were able to log their best road trip ever. The first time in their history that they were able to win a road trip consisting of 6 or more games in opposing arenas. The very first time. Wild stat line. But hey, it did pay off for them. Moving on to the Nets. Over this course of time, they went 3-6 during this time. They did beat the Hawks by 8, as I just mentioned, to start things out, with both Cam and Keon Johnson carrying majority of this load for them. They then had ripped off a 6-game losing streak with an 8-point loss to the Celtics. Back-to-back losses against the Pacers with different scorers leading the way. A 19-point loss to the Mavericks. A 30-point loss to the Raptors on March 26th with a score of 116 to 86. And then a 32-point loss to the Clippers on March 28th. For what it's worth in this one, former Gonzaga power forward and center Drew Timme did get some burn for quite literally the first time in a while in this one. And he logged an 11-point, 10-rebound double-double off the bench on 4 of 6 shooting while adding in a 3. So, if nothing else mattered, I suppose it was that. They then notched 2 consecutive wins, with those coming against the Wizards in Washington by 3 and against the Mavericks in Dallas by 4. They still remain as the 12th seed in the Eastern Conference. Nothing, nope. They ain't gonna do nothing, man. They good, bro. They good. Alright. Moving on to the Hornets, who over this time have gone 2-8 since March 16th. Now, Mark Williams led the way in this Clippers game with 18 points, 15 rebounds, and 7 assists. But they were heavily depleted without the likes of having LaMelo Ball and other core players out there. So they ended up losing this one by a final score of 123 to 88. Well, LaMelo Ball did play in this one, but honestly, you're going to have yourself get beat like that. It honestly felt like they weren't even out there at that point of time. Not going to deny that. Against the Hawks, they would lose by 32. With Seth Curry leading the way with 19 points, weirdly enough. They then managed to beat the Knicks somehow, and honestly, it's just crazy. I mean, by the final margin of victory was 17, as LaMelo Ball put up 25, 5, and 8 on 10 of 23 shooting. Mark Williams added 19 points and 14 boards, and Miles Bridges added 15 points 10 rebounds, and 4 assists in the ball game. After that, they ripped off 5 consecutive losses. A 35-point loss against the Thunder, a 17-point loss against the Heat, a 7-point loss against the Magic, and an 11-point loss against the Raptors in Toronto, and a 4-point loss against the Pelicans in New Orleans. Though it's certainly a tough spot to be in for them. They are the 14th seed in the Eastern Conference, and once more, as everything gets closer and closer to inching down, they have nothing to play for at this point. Whatever they do is not necessarily going to change most of what is set in stone at this point. Moving on to the Bulls, who, honestly, with what they have done over this stretch of time, I mean, this kind of continues what they had done from the original period I covered in the last video. But, man, I couldn't have even imagined just what the hell they would accomplish over just the past couple of weeks or so. I mean, it's just really impressive when you think about it. Obviously, they were going to remain a fringe team this season. At least they understood that they were going to go in some kind of direction here. And they were rebuilding for the most part. What I can say right now is that it is safe to assume that the current players on this roster do not understand that they are trying to rebuild. They are playing their asses off as best as they can to win. That's what it comes down to. And since March 16th, they have been on they have acquired a record of 6-3. They opened things up by beating the Jazz in Utah by a score of 111-97. They then suffered a 6-point defeat at the hands of the Suns, with Vucevic leading the way. They won in Sacramento on the 20th by a score of 128-116, a game that saw Kobe White go off for 35 points. He also added 5 assists as well on 10 of 18 shooting with 2 threes. Kevin Huerter had 25 points, 7 assists, 4 steals, and 5 rebounds on 10 of 16 shooting with 5 threes as well. In this one, they got out in transition exceptionally well. 23-8 here. Turnovers were about even, but that still didn't end up meaning too much on their end. They were able to just hit more of their shots in optimal moments of time. And judging by the fact that it was a 12-point ball game, that effectively made the difference. They would own the Lakers over this stretch too. Games on March 22nd and then March 27th against the Lakers saw the Bulls win in a couple different ways, I should say. For this one on the 22nd, they would dominate them. They won by a final score of 146-115, and everybody played spirited basketball here. I mean, everyone. Kobe White had his 36 points again, this time on 12 of 17 shooting with 6 threes. But then you also had the rookie Matas Buzelis come in for 30 minutes and score 31 points. Also, just completely giving Luka Doncic the stick work earlier in the ball game with a flurry of moves all at one time and then a reverse dunk of sorts to finish off that possession. If only he would have done that in the dunk contest. Nonetheless, you'll take it from the rookie who shot 12 of 18 in this one and made 5 threes. Josh Giddey as well, though it's not really been talked about too much, he has also had a tremendous surge as well. In this one, he had 15 points, 17 assists, 8 steals as well, and 10 rebounds, with just 2 turnovers. Damn near a quadruple double in one of the more unconventional ways you'll ever see. 5 of 11 shooting for him. He also hit a 3 as well. Kevin Huerter and Patrick Williams both had 14. Dylan Terry had 13. And Nikola Vucevic had 12 points on this night, along with 12 rebounds and 5 assists. They shot 58.3% from the field, 46.3% from deep while making just a couple more, and also shot 75% from the line. They controlled the glass. They had their way in the paint. And really, this game was all about trapping Luka Doncic and kind of forcing LeBron to make errant decisions that he typically would not make. They trapped the hell out of him. And honestly, judging by the sheer fact that Josh Giddey got a damn near quadruple double with almost 10 steals, you can see how the Bulls ended up winning this game. Steals and Bulls, for especially Josh Giddey. Steals in that man's name became even more relevant in this next matchup, which saw the Lakers take a large, and I mean large, lead heading into the heat of this particular action. I believe it stated that they were up by 20 or so points. They had a double-digit lead. There's no denying that. And then they just allowed the Bulls to creep their way back again and again and again. Yeah. Yeah, the league, from what I'm seeing here, got as high as 18. And they just completely lost it. Especially late, and especially on the part of none other than the guy LeBron James. All you have to do is really look at this final minute here. The Lakers were trying their best to close the game out, and you would have Josh Giddey get an and one late. Then you would see a missed shot by Luka Doncic, followed up by a clutch 3 from Kevin Huerter. Then you had Austin Reeves respond with a clutch layup of his own. I couldn't expect any less from the man. But then you do force the Bulls into desperation time as Austin Reeves sunk 2 more free throws. Then we get into pure madness. With 10 seconds to go, you have Patrick Williams make a 3-pointer, shockingly enough. Now it's time to inbound. If you're in the Lakers spot, all you have to do is get it in and force them to foul you, and the game should go as planned. Instead, LeBron James throws one of the weaker passes imaginable in that moment, fully on him. There was nothing to it. It traveled so little in distance that Josh Giddey was able to convert on the opportunity, steal the ball in that moment, and dish it out to Kobe White, who made the 3 that would have them take the lead. Lakers called a timeout afterwards to dial up a play, and then you had Austin Reeves get in his bag again, getting another layup to go. Now the Bulls had to inbound, and with no more timeouts left, they figured that they needed to rush a shot. Patrick Williams would inbound it and give it to Josh Giddey, who dribbled the ball up the court a little bit and then from half court shot it and fucking made it for his first ever game-winning buzzer beater as an NBA player. And the Bulls would win by 2 with Giddey in this one, putting up 25, 14, 11, and 2 steals on 8 of 19 shooting. Kobe White had 26. Kevin Huerter had 21, 6, and 5 on 8 of 17 shooting, along with 5 threes. And Nikola Vucevic had 14 points and 8 rebounds as well. In betwixt all of that, they did beat the Nuggets by 10, with Kobe White putting up 37 to give themselves a 4-game winning streak heading into their matchup against the Mavericks, which saw them lose by just a single point. Though, to their credit, Matas Buzelis would not let them die. Literally, 28 points, 9 rebounds, and 6 assists for him on 10 of 17 shooting and 5 threes, along with Nikola Vucevic and Kobe White adding 25 points each. Still, it just wasn't enough at the end of the day, as the Mavericks were initially down in this one, but by the fourth quarter, they took enough control at just the right time to ensure themselves the victory. Obviously, they ran into the Thunder on March 31st and lost by 28, because of course they did. Who's really going to match up with the Thunder well in that situation? It's a hard ask for any team. But they would get it back against the Raptors to open up April yesterday, winning by 19 with a score of 137 to 118 in a game that saw Kobe White put up 28 points, 6 assists, 2 steals, and 3 boards on 10 of 16 shooting. Talen Horton-Tucker had a tremendous game for, honestly, feels like forever, honestly. I still remember when this man was an untouchable player for the Lakers, and that certainly has not aged well to this point. He's been bounced around from team to team, but here, on this particular night, he did his thing. In 32 minutes of play, he had 27 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, and no turnovers, with just exceptional shooting for his standards. 8 of 16 from the field, 3 threes, and perfect from the line. Nikola Vucevic also had 22 points, 10 rebounds, and 7 assists. And Josh Giddey had 17 points, 7 rebounds, and 12 assists, along with 3 steals on 5 of 12 shooting. Currently, they are the very last seed in the Eastern Conference. Now, they do have 6 games, and even 6 games on the very team that they beat last night. Still, they've got to continue that trend. The Raptors are not fully out of it. If you make even the slightest mistake, they could be on you. So you have to try to keep your foot on the gas here if you're them. That's no lie. Moving on to the Cleveland Cavaliers, who in this stretch of time went a shocking, for the standard that they set this season, 4-5. Yes, 4-5. I did kind of spoil or accidentally bleed into the coverage of the Magic game that they played on Sunday, March 16th. They lost that one, breaking a 16-game winning streak after they became the first team to post multiple 15-plus game winning streaks in a single season. But that was not the end of their troubles in this one. They would go overall on a 4-game losing streak, losing to the Clippers by 13 on March 18th, losing to the Kings by 4 in the back-to-back, despite Evan Mobley putting up 31 points and 10 rebounds. And then they lost to the Suns on March 21st by 11, with Darius Garland leading the way in this one with 18 points, 6 assists, and also 5 rebounds on 8 of 16 shooting. DeAndre Hunter had 17. Ty Jerome had 16. At the end of the day, This one was about a lack of contribution from none other than Donovan Mitchell, who went just 2 of 18 on the night, scored no 3-point field goal at all, and finished with just 7 points. For a superstar player, that's probably one of the worst games from a superstar caliber player this season. I can't try to weave my way around that one. That poor shooting did cost them this one. Nonetheless, they would temporarily get back on track after ripping off 3 straight wins against, albeit lackluster teams, between the Jazz on March 23rd by 29, against the Blazers in Portland by 11 on March 25th, and then by 8 against the Spurs on the 27th. The Pistons would hand them a loss by 11, as Donovan Mitchell did perform markedly better in this game right here, with 38 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists on 12 of 24 shooting. Darius Garland also had 21 points, 5 threes, and 7 of 17 shooting on 5 rebounds and 6 assists as well. They then beat the Clippers on the 30th by 5, with Jarrett Allen actually leading the way. 25 points and 12 rebounds led the team on this night. He also contributed 3 assists and 2 steals on 11 of 12 shooting. Donovan Mitchell had 24 points on 9 of 19 shooting, along with 12 rebounds and 7 assists. And then Darius Garland had 19 points and 7 assists on 5 of 14 shooting. The Cavs sit as the best team in the Eastern Conference as of the making of this video. But I guess if you are a Cavs fan, you are just hoping that this stretch that they had to effectively open up this period of time is not a sign of things to come. Like, obviously you've got to go out and win 4 games to clinch a playoff series. So to drop 4 straight games like that, you hope that is not long lasting, that is an anomaly, and that all of your star players are there and ready to show up. Because, like, obviously they've had expectations for a while now, even when it was just Darius Garland there. They've been on this surge over the past 3 years or so. The potential is there, and expectations have formed, but, you know, they're going to wear thin over time, especially if you cannot clinch any sort of deep playoff run or run to the finals. Because obviously people are still going to sleep on it, despite it just being very well recognized that they have a great head coach in Kenny Atkinson down there right now, are doing great work for them as a first-timer with the club. And that their player personnel also, that their chemistry is just something that has to be studied as well. They are so on point every time. And to outside sources, it wouldn't necessarily make a lot of sense at first glance. But then as you delve deeper into it, you begin to understand that a little more. Once more, maybe they will be motivated by that to come together as a unit when it matters most. But we'll see. Moving on to the Mavericks, who went even 4-4 during this time. They had back-to-back losses to open up this stretch, with a 5-point loss against the 76ers and then another tough 4-point loss against the Pacers, despite P.J. Washington Jr. in both games trying his best to carry the squad to victory. They've just, they're just way weaker than they were, honestly, just a few weeks back. Way weaker. And some of these other teams are just much greater, to the point where it's just hard for them to force enough mistakes on the other end of the basketball to lead themselves to victory. Now they did, with that being said, get a 6-point win against the Pistons on March the 21st, and then Anthony Davis came back after suffering his injury and being out for all of this extended time. They brought him back, and let's just say that since then they've been 3-2. They did have a pretty easy outing against the Nets on the 24th, and then lost by 15 to the Knicks, despite Najee Marshall having yet another random game on his end. In this particular one, he dropped 38 points, along with 7 rebounds on 17 of 25 shooting. Brandon Williams added 22 points, and Jaden Hardy had 15 points as well. They then won back-to-back outings against the Magic by 9, and then against the Bulls, as I mentioned, by a single point, before succumbing to the Nets on March 31st by a final score of 113-109. Even though they are depleted, anytime that Daniel Gafford is going to be your leading scorer for your team, you may be in trouble. Now, all things considered, he was 7-9 from the field and logged 17 points in just 19 minutes. Either you play him more or you get your other guys to step up. I guess neither thing happened. So, hey, they find themselves on the losing end of it, and they can't be totally surprised. They sit at 9th in the Western Conference after kind of working their way back up, and then for a second there being completely out of it. It might be a stretch to say that the Mavericks could catch any of the teams in 1 through 8, but at the very least they could still clinch a play-in spot. They have a half a game over the Kings right now, who sit at 10th. So anything is possible, but you've just got to get to winning enough. Because if you're going to suffer loss after loss, you don't have so much room for margin of error anymore as the season winds down. So they've got to figure that out. Moving on to the Nuggets, who have also split even with a record of 4-4 over this time. Once more, another stretch that involves just the wildest shit going on. I mean, what can I say? They start out with a commanding victory against a Warriors team at full strength, despite not having Russ. Well, let's just put it like this. Prior to the game, Jokic and Murray were ruled out, and they go in with a semi-depleted roster against a Warriors team riding high since they've gotten Jimmy Butler III, and since they've had everyone in their starting lineup go crazy. They beat the shit out of them. Honestly, I watched this game live, and I kid you not, it did not feel like a ball game that was 114-105 worthy. Yes, the Warriors did try to work their way back into things, but to be completely honest, man, the Nuggets have full control of it. Full control of it. They won almost every single quarter. Aaron Gordon dominated. 38 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists for him on 14 of 23 shooting, along with 4 threes. Michael Porter Jr. had 21 points and 10 rebounds. And then Russell Westbrook, in yet another unconventional way, he shot horribly from the field. Let's not deny it. 5 of 18 shooting from the field is absolutely nothing to write home about. And still, he was able to work his way into a 12-point, 12-rebound, 16 assist, and 3 steal ball game. Just giving pretty much every single ball handler on the Warriors offense hell when they got around him, and then also imposing his will as yet another smart mind with high basketball IQ who can make the right read at the right time. Like, literally, Russell Westbrook, yes, he's not as big as a Jokic, but within the past decade, he's done the same stuff. We are talking about a man who averaged a triple-double for an entire season. He has an understanding of what to do. And in this situation, it works perfectly. When you don't have a guy like Jokic on the court, you can have someone like Russell Westbrook assume the mantle and try to get everyone involved. And that's exactly what happened here. Now, in the next game following this, they would suffer defeat at the hands of the Lakers in another game I watched, where they honestly got boat race to start things out. I mean, I'll get to the Lakers in a second and how everything went for them, but all I can say about the Nuggets is that they couldn't stop a lick, especially early on, especially with the way that the first quarter of the ball game went. They couldn't stop a goddamn thing. There's no other way for me to convey that message. They couldn't do anything about it. A 46-point quarter for the Lakers was ultimately, despite the Nuggets' best efforts and despite a few little runs they had over the course of the rest of the game, that was too much to overcome. They lost by 12. Now, in this one, Aaron Gordon had 26 and 11 rebounds on 14 shooting. Jalen Pickett had 14, and Michael Porter Jr. had 12. Russell Westbrook also had 12 points and 9 assists as well. I mean, anywhere you can think of, the Lakers have full reign. So it's pretty easy to see how the Nuggets ended up losing. Very easy. Now, this next loss against the Trailblazers in Portland is rather unexplainable. Losing by 19 to them on March 21st. They briefly bounced back with a solid victory against the Rockets on March 23rd by 5, in which Jamal Murray put up 39 points on the night. They lost the Bulls by 10, as I mentioned, and then got back-to-back wins against the Bucks by 10, with Jokic putting up 39 points, 10 assists, and also 10 rebounds for yet another triple-double, as he currently, as of this recording, leads the league in triple-doubles. Had 16 of 25 shooting along with 3 threes. Michael Porter Jr. had 23 points and 10 rebounds on 7 of 9 shooting along with 6 threes this time. He was definitely going to jack him up, but at least he made him in this one. And then Christian Braun had 19 points on 8 of 15 shooting with 3 threes while also adding 10 rebounds. 3 separate individuals posting double-doubles. Craziness. Then they won by 36 against the Jazz, and again saw Jokic put up 27 points and 14 rebounds on March 28th, before opening up April with honestly a barn burner. I don't know what it is, but literally, as I've stated, over the past month or so, you could argue, we have been able to witness some of the best NBA games maybe within the past couple of decades, and honestly, depending on who you ask, maybe of all time. Why have multiple involved the Nuggets over this stretch? Because this damn game against the Timberwolves last night was absolutely crazy. From the opening tip-off, Jokic was just going to fucking work. Everybody was hitting their shots. Aaron Gordon got going. The Nuggets jumped out to a 30-15 lead. And then they also, during that stretch, had 15 points in transition. They were spreading the fucking Timberwolves out and being efficient as hell with it. And then you started to see why the Nuggets are in kind of a flux, even with them having somewhat good standing in the Western Conference. They would allow the Wolves to go on a 37-19 run. And eventually, things got so contested that the Timberwolves were able to temporarily take a lead. So now the Nuggets had to get on the defensive and try their hardest to battle back. It took a while, and things were relatively competitive. You know, the Nuggets had that tremendous start and a 16-point lead, but things didn't really get too far out of hand for the most part as the game went on. Like, they were literally going at it. And Jokic was still just cooking up everyone. I mean everyone. To the point where he was able to draw enough fouls to where Gobert, to kind of preface things, actually fouled out of the ball game. And Jokic himself was in foul trouble. Julius Randle was in foul trouble. Then Anthony Edwards in this moment would have to step up. Now, granted, he had 10 points in the first half, or the first quarter. He was relatively quiet after that. He didn't do much of anything. And I noted it too. I was saying that they would need him to step things up if they wanted to compete. Because Jokic was simply doing too much without any resistance whatsoever. And then Anthony Edwards started to get going. I mean, damn. Hits a 3, assists on a Gobert dunk, assists on another Julius Randle 3, hits a couple free throws, and then got himself getting back-to-back buckets to eventually give the Timberwolves a 3-point lead with just 2 minutes and 9 seconds left. Then it was Nikola Jokic's time to make something happen, and eventually he tied up the ball game with just 13 seconds left to go in regulation after foul on Gobert, which would send him out. The Timberwolves would have a chance to close things out. But they trusted Julius Randle in the moment, and he bricked the shot. First overtime. Relatively contested. Same case going on. The Timberwolves were actually able to take a little bit of firm control here. But Nikola Jokic was just too formidable for them. And let's just say that at this point, this man, Nikola Jokic, was treading on not only a triple-double, but also getting on the verge of breaking his career high of 56 set multiple times this season, and even playing with a potential 60-point triple-double even. So naturally, you would expect the Timberwolves, who did, after Jokic tied up the ball game again, had another shot at trying to win the ball game. Nickeil Alexander-Walker airballed it. We get in the second overtime. You would believe that they would try to do everything in their power, because you're really getting desperate at that point, to force Nikola Jokic to make a mistake. I mean, he just went absolutely stupid on him. Like, it got so bad, man. You had Julius Randle on multiple occasions getting worked in the post by Nikola Jokic. Though granted, he wasn't completely useless on both sides. He did help Michael Conley make a three-point jumper. And he did a relatively good job of spacing the floor for other players to get involved at the time. But Nikola Jokic was literally just a monster in this situation. I kid you not. Like, man, there was a bucket here that Nikola Jokic got where he, off the screen, was being held so aggressively by Nickeil Alexander-Walker so as not to be given a free bucket. This man, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, had his arm up in his grill like this, trying to hang on for dear life. And you want to know what Nikola Jokic does in that situation? He spins right off of him, gets him out of the way, and he falls to the ground while Jokic just barrels in for the easy bucket. It was crazy. Now, the Timberwolves and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, for that matter, had responses. He would hit the three-pointer that eventually gave them a brief lead before Russell Westbrook tied things up, making just one of his 2 free throws. And then the Nuggets, they were able to do some really impressive stuff. At that point, effectively, the game could have been wrapped up right there. But Christian Braun, with his instincts, was able to reel back over for a forced turnover and give the Nuggets the ball back. Now, with possession and with a chance to make something happen, you would have Nikola Jokic draw yet another foul opportunity. Now, Nikola Jokic did end up missing one, but he did make the other to give the Nuggets a 1-point lead. And at this point, Russell Westbrook would activate a pretty good play by forcing the Anthony Edwards turnover, but then he, for whatever reason, decided to drive in for the layup. Granted, the Timberwolves had no more timeouts at this point. You were better off just forcing them to foul you, but that's neither here nor there. He goes in for the layup and he smokes it. And then the Timberwolves get the ball back. They acknowledge that he is going to be out of position. And eventually they work the ball around to the point where they catch Russell Westbrook right in the act. And in one of the more heartbreaking moments a Nuggets fan will have experienced this season, he gets called for a foul. Now, granted, it was a clear foul. He was so far out of position, he tried to hustle his way back down the court in time, but the closeout was late, and as Nickeil Alexander-Walker was trying to shoot, he kind of pushed him to the ground with his momentum. It came down to free throws, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker made 2 of them. He intentionally missed the third one, though again, either way, the Nuggets were only spared a second. It would take something highly miraculous to get off a shot in a second. But it's just sickening to understand that this man, Nikola Jokic, put up not just a triple-double, but a 61-point, 10 rebound, 10 assists ball game in 53 minutes of play in double overtime, giving him the highest point total for any player in this NBA season right now. All of this while shooting 18 of 29 from the field, hitting 6 threes, and making 19 of his 24 free throws. Yes, the Nuggets were undermanned, but they had a lead. They had the sheer willpower, and it still wasn't enough because in the clutch moments, the defense just could not stay disciplined for 1 second. So they lost by a single point. Aaron Gordon, for what it's worth, did have 30 points of his own in this one on a 9 of 15 shooting with 4 threes and 8 of 10 free throws from the stripe. He also had 8 rebounds and 5 assists, and Christian Braun had 18 points and 12 boards on 8 of 14 shooting. This is absolutely crazy to me. The Nuggets now have apparently lost to the Timberwolves 6 straight times. Yet again, kind of crazy to think about. It's just like, I don't know. But that is going to be the Nuggets down. I kid you not. This defensive thing, man, they have got to turn this shit around. Or any potential playoff run is going to be shot down. Because you're going to have teams exploit that consistently. There's no doubt about it in my mind. Moving on to the Pistons, who have went 5-2 over this time span. They started out with back-to-back victories, a 46-point win against the Pels on March 17th, in which they scored 127 points. And then, on March 19th, they played against the Heat, who, granted, at this time were struggling, but the Pistons, on prime time, I was not initially expecting much, but it turned out to be a very ground-out basketball game, if I do say so myself. I mean, not a lot of threes were made between either squad. Both of them got to the line the same amount of times. Literally, just grit and grind basketball. And you would see Cade Cunningham not only put up his 9th triple-double, which I still believe is the 3rd most for a Detroit Piston in a single season, but he was also able to hit what would end up being the game-winning shot at the very end of things to give the Pistons a 116-113 victory, in which he put up 25 points on 44% shooting from the field, along with 12 rebounds and 11 assists. Tobias Harris added 13 points. Jalen Duren added 15 points and 11 rebounds. And Amen Thompson added 14 points and 6 boards. It also helped that Malik Beasley had 5 threes off the bench. They needed every single one of them. There's no denying that. Then you get around to their next ball games, and they would lose by 6 to the Mavericks, as I mentioned. They then beat the Pelicans by 6 once more, with Ron Holland II leading the way in scoring for them. They also blew the hell out of the Spurs, winning by 26 in a game that saw Marcus Sasser go for 27 points off the bench in 26 minutes, and all while shooting 75% from the field, 71% from deep, and 80% from the line. Then they would face off against the Cavs and actually won it by 11, as I mentioned. Shockingly enough, they actually managed to win a game. A team in 2025, breaking news, managed to win a ball game in which Tim Hardaway Jr. led the way in the scoring. Just think about that for a second. In 33 minutes in this ball game, most of his damage was done in the first half, but he finished with 32 points on 10 of 18 shooting, along with 7 threes. If I'm a Pistons fan, I'm never expecting that from him again. But it gave you the edge here. So, I guess it's fine for now. Dennis Schroeder, Amen Thompson, and Jalen Duren all had double-doubles in this ball game, while Malik Beasley had 19 points on 4 of 10 shooting and added 3 threes in as well. Things would come to a head in this matchup, their last one, against the Timberwolves, which they lost tremendously. Obviously, without having some of their key players, they were going to be at a disadvantage, but it was really of their own doing when you think about it. I mean, there was a fight that broke out. I mean, I guess maybe it's not the fight that most people would consider a true one, but there was a brawl. It broke out into the stands, and eventually it got so bad that 7 different people were ejected, including Isaiah Stewart, of course, Ron Holland II, Naz Reid, Dante DiVincenzo, and then also Marcus Sasser was involved in a little bit. You also had JB Bickerstaff and Pablo Prigioni go out of the ball game here. Following that, they would have formal suspensions come out for people involved. So you would have Isaiah Stewart be suspended for 2 games. Now, granted, yes, as the league themselves said, Stewart has a repeated history of unsportsmanlike acts. But the way that the news was conveyed in terms of like headlines on other programs, they made it seem like he got one of the biggest suspensions of all time in NBA history, even though, like, granted, didn't necessarily lay punches or things like that. Like, 2 games isn't as drastic as y'all were making it seem. That's what I would say to that. Stewart got that, and then Ron Holland II, Marcus Sasser, Naz Reid, and Dante DiVincenzo all got 1 game suspensions as well. All of those suspensions are going to start for action tonight. Every single one. As far as the game itself goes, though, Dennis Schroeder had 11 points and 11 assists without a single turnover, but he didn't shoot well from the field. Malik Beasley had 27 points and 6 threes, but that when in a game like that, where you're trying to battle back to just consistently shoot and shoot and shoot, I mean, I guess you've got to know your role, but it would have been best to see him try to get more involved in facilitating potentially to get other players active, because you needed something. Tim Hardaway Jr. had 20 and Jalen Duren had 13 points and 11 rebounds on the night. Moving on to the Warriors, who went 5-3 since March 16th. They did lose to the Nuggets to open things up, as I already mentioned. I don't know, man. Shit, it was not the greatest all-around display. I mean, you had Steph go for 20 and 7, along with 3 steals here, but turnovers were just high. I mean, even he in this one had 7, and as a team they had 20. That's just possession after possession after possession being wasted. It also didn't help that Curry, too, like 6 of 21 shooting along with that is just, it's not a great mix, and it sunk the Warriors. They were trying to inch their way back, but obviously you would like to have your core guy lead you back, and that, let's just say that there was none of that here. Jimmy Butler III, for what it's worth, had 23 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists on 8 of 16 shooting, along with 1 3-pointer. Gary Payton had 18 points and 2 threes, along with 80% shooting from the field off the bench in 26 minutes as well. I guess it's safe to say, though, that ended up being an anomaly here because, again, since Jimmy Butler III has been here, the Warriors have been on a complete and total tear. So one game like that, I guess you're afforded it because they would go right back in this one, and now having Curry rest in this back-to-back, they would win by 11 against a Bucks team at full strength at the time, with Draymond Green putting up 3 points and 10 rebounds. Jimmy Butler III had 24 points, 10 assists, and 8 rebounds on 6 of 13 shooting to lead the way. You also had Brandon Podziemski get 17 points, hit 4 threes, and a couple of those came late in the ball game to put it away, honestly. Buddy Hield had 15 points, and Quentin Post had 14. He was on the verge of having double-digit ball games with multiple threes made, or 3 or more threes made, so that's pretty interesting. But again, I'm still, I would love to see Quentin Post continue to develop as a player in the paint, in the post. He's got the size for it, but obviously as a raw talent, we understand that there are things that have to be worked out here, so we get it. They would then rip off another one against the Raptors, and it came down to the wire. They won 117-114, with Jimmy Butler putting up a 16-point, 11-rebound, and 12-assist triple-double, with Podziemski putting up 15 points, and with Draymond Green leading the way with 21 points of his own and 5 threes. Quentin Post also had 18 points and 6 threes, and Stephen Curry had a fine game, but let's just say that this win came at a cost because while he did have 17 points and 2 rebounds on 6 of 8 shooting from the field along with 2 threes, he surprisingly missed 2 free throws, and most importantly, as he was trying to drive in the paint, he was essentially fouled. I kid you not. I'm still not over. He was fouled by Colin Castleton, who was one of the 2 players contesting the shot, and eventually he fell down to the ground so hard that he could barely get back up. In that moment, his tailbone completely faltered. And I honestly thought that the injury was going to be way worse than it was upon first sights of it. Obviously, we didn't know, we're not medical experts, but they would immediately take him back to the locker room and get into x-rays where they would discover that he suffered a pelvic contusion. That wasn't severe. There was no structural damage to the area, thank goodness. Everyone let out a sigh of relief because, it would have gotten crazy around these parts. Safe to say, though, that Stephen Curry would miss at least the next couple of games to recover from it, and they would then lose the next couple of games without Stephen Curry. I mean, they were at least competitive in this Hawks one. They were getting blown out for a little bit. They did try to inch their way back, but it ultimately wasn't enough here. I mean, you had Jimmy Butler go off for 25, 8, and 4 on 7-15 shooting, and Moses Moody added 20 points as well. Brandon Podziemski had 19, and Jonathan Kuminga had 16 off the bench, along with 2 rebounds and assists. But they just got out-muscled in the paint and on the glass. Any marginal improvement there would have certainly helped their cause. The Heat game was just a nightmare all around. I watched it live, and I guess, it's just... Let's just say that this game was supposed to be about Jimmy Butler returning to the Heat and essentially trying to stick it to them. In reality, not only did that not happen, but it seemed like Andrew Wiggins got more of his get back here, as they would proceed to win by 26. Too many things to count happened in this ball game from a statistical standpoint, and also from some of the plays, man. Some of the plays just got my ass fucking heated. Like, I kid you not. I kid you not. Bam Adebayo was simply just having his way. And the starting defense for the Heat apparently turned it up so damn much, because the fact of the matter is that at halftime, I kid you not, yes, we are just a single day or so removed from April Fool's, but I kid you not, every single Warriors starter by the end of the first half had just 2 points. Every single one. You know how lackluster that is? How lackluster that sounds? It's like, oh my gosh, man. That's just awful. And then it just continued to get worse and worse. The Warriors kept on racking up 24-second violation after 24-second violation. And then things really came to a head as the game was getting closer to end, bro. Third quarter saw Kel'el Ware continue to go crazy for the Heat. Obviously, he's done well for them. And he served as a very strong force in this ball game for him. But, yeah, it was really in their favor after this happened. You have Kayvon Looney get into Kel'el Ware's grill as he's driving, and he does force the steal initially. So it pops up in the air. And then Kel'el Ware catches this popped, tipped pass. He catches the deflected ball, reverses, and lays it up for a made two-pointer. Anyways, as he's driving midair. At that point, I knew it was up. At that point, I knew it was over. And then you had Davion Mitchell come in and hit multiple threes. Oh, yeah, it was a wrap after that shit. No. Like, there's not really much to write home about for the Warriors here. It just wasn't the slot. It wasn't the best game. And it did not paint the team in the best light. But they would pick things back up pretty quickly. They would rip off 3 straight victories as of the recording of this video. They won by 16 against the Pelicans on, last Friday, with Stephen Curry putting up 23 points and 6 assists, while also having Jimmy Butler put up 18 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 assists on 6 of 13 shooting. Then on Sunday, you would have the Spurs suffer defeat at the hands of the Dubs with a final score of 148 to 106. The Warriors shot 57.7% from the field, made 47.7% of their three-pointers, and also shot 78.9% from the line. Beat them senseless in transition, beat them senseless in the paint, and just got to clamping shit on defense for easy bucket after easy bucket on offense. A very effective game. Honestly, if you were to hear that Stephen Curry put up just 13.6 assists and 3 rebounds and they won that, even with the Spurs team being as depleted as they are, definitely would have given someone like me a side eye. But no, this happened. As Brandon Pajemski actually put up 27 points on 9 of 14 shooting, along with 7 threes, 5 assists, and 6 rebounds. Moses Moody put up 20 points. Buddy Hield put up 19 points off the bench. And Draymond Green added 14 points and 5 rebounds as well. Then things came to a head last night against the Grizzlies in Memphis. They did not broadcast this nationally, but man, they should have. Right off the rip, you had Stephen Curry go off for 19 points in the first quarter. His highest since the 25-point outing he had on opening day of 2021 against the Clippers with his 25. He then proceeded to follow that up by tying his career high for three-pointers in a half with 8 by the end of the first half. And he had 40. Now, the Grizzlies definitely gave it their best efforts because, not to be outdone, you had Ja Morant going stupid in this game as well. You had Santi Aldama and Desmond Bane and the crew hitting shot after shot to temporarily take the lead from the Warriors on multiple occasions. But Stephen Curry and this Warriors offense would not be outdone. Eventually, after being down with a score of 120 to 118, you had Stephen Curry get a corner shot from deep to open up the game. And from there, the Warriors took complete and total advantage. They were able to draw a few easy fouls and get some quick buckets. Eventually, to where they were able to win the ball game with a final score of 134 to 125, in which Stephen Curry here put up 52 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists, and 5 steals with just 2 turnovers on 16 of 31 shooting from the field, 12 threes of 20 attempts, 60% from deep, and then perfect from the stripe on 8 attempts. One of the more efficient ball games you'll ever see, and a true stat sheet stuffer here. 4x5 for a player of this caliber is absolutely insane. And he was really on the verge of breaking not only his own career high in 13 threes made in a game, but also Klay Thompson's record of 14. He was on that pace for a while. Even though it didn't happen, it's a strong win. And I mean, Stephen Curry, honestly, at this point has all the three-point records. I mean, bro, there is a stat line that is so ridiculous. Like, if you search up the player with the most made threes in a particular ball game on a number-by-number basis, any single number from 2 to 12, Stephen Curry has the most games with that particular number of three-pointers made. Just go up and down the list. He's got it on lock. It's crazy. Yes, the focus is on Curry here, but Jimmy Butler also added 27 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists, along with 3 steals on 7 of 11 shooting, while also hitting a 3 of his own. Draymond Green also had a 13-point, 12 assists, and 10 rebound double-double with just 3 turnovers. He didn't necessarily shoot the best, but that's a way to engineer an offense. So certainly, will take that. Also, Kevon Looney hit a 3. Yeah. Craziness. And with that game, Stephen Curry notched his 12th 50-point game, one of the higher marks in all-time history for the NBA. He passed up Jerry West for the 25th most points in NBA history as well. And hey, Jerry West, I'm pretty sure that it's well documented what he was able to do as a part of the Grizzlies executive staff. So, I guess that's quite a way to pay homage in that setting. Nothing but respect for a legend, of course. And then also, Stephen Curry put up multiple 50-point games this season. Obviously, his game against the Magic in February 27th. So, yeah. With that, he is the second player age 35 or older to log multiple 50-pointers in a season. The other being LeBron, of course. Also, with Stephen Curry doing that kind of damage, and then Nikola Jokic doing what I already prefaced earlier in this video. It is the first time in NBA history last night that multiple former MVPs had 50-plus point games on the same day. It's just legendary stuff. The shit gets crazier by the day, and we haven't even reached the playoffs yet. But speaking of playoffs, in terms of standings, with that win against the Grizzlies, they took them over by at least a half a game. And now they currently sit as the 5th seed in the West, with around 7 or so games to go, at least for their particular schedule. They are surging at the right time. You've got to love it. You've got to love it, man. Moving on to the Rockets, who went 6-2 in this time. They started out by ripping off a 3-game win streak, including one by 7 against the 76ers on March 17th. They won this game with a score of 144 to 137, and it went to overtime. These niggas actually had to come back in this ball game and win it. Nonetheless, credit to them, they accomplished this feat. They, as a team, shot 47% from the field, along with 41.5% from deep, and also 83% from the line. They had a great advantage on the boards, which ultimately allowed them to get some of the extra possessions they needed. And they didn't convert every single time, but they made timely plays to give themselves the win here. As far as it goes, Jalen Green had 30 points, 13 assists, and 7 rebounds on the night on 10 of 26 shooting. Jeez. As inefficient as that is to an extent in terms of the shooting aspect, they would get tremendous help from Jabari Smith Jr. off the bench, who in 39 minutes also put up 30 points and 8 rebounds on 11 of 17 shooting with 5 threes as well. Dylan Brooks had 25 points and 5 threes for some reason on 8 of 19 shooting, while adding 6 rebounds and 5 assists as well. And then Tari Eason had 21 points as well. Then they won by 8 against the Magic on March 19th before winning by 4 against the Heat on March 21st in a game where Fred VanVleet actually led the way for them. In a game where they shot horribly from the line. And honestly, if they shot any worse, it could have affected them as far as this particular ball game went. Still, they were proficient from most everywhere else. It also helped that Fred VanVleet put up 37 points, 3 assists, and 3 steals. No other stat line. Just pure buckets. 13 of 17 shooting for him, along with 9 threes on 11 attempts. Amen Thompson had 18 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, and 7 steals on 8 of 14 shooting. And then Dillon Brooks and Jabari Smith Jr. each had 11. Auburn Schengen, in 34 minutes, had just 8 points and 10 rebounds on 4 of 15 shooting. So kind of a struggle game for some of these early matches for the Rockets here. They would lose to the Nuggets, as I mentioned, on March 23rd by 5, despite Jalen Green putting up another 30-pointer and 5 assists on 8 of 22 shooting. Auburn Schengen had 17 points, 14 rebounds, and 10 assists as well without a single turnover. And Dillon Brooks had 21 points on 8 of 12 shooting, along with 5 threes. Still, that was not enough to get the job done. Even Steven Adams, for example, got 14 points and 12 boards. After that loss, though, they then ripped off another 3-game winning streak against the Hawks by 7 on March 25th. As I mentioned, they won against the Jazz in Utah on March 27th by 11 points, in a game that saw Auburn Schengen turn it around finally, putting up 33 points, 10 rebounds, and 2 assists, along with 2 blocks on 11 of 19 shooting. Jalen Green added 21, and both Tari Eason and Amen Thompson added 15 points each. Jabari Smith Jr. also had an 11-point, 10-rebound double-double off the bench, and Amen Thompson also added 10 rebounds. Then, in a dominant win against the Suns team that is just on the decline every single fucking day, they won by 39 in a game that saw them shoot 57% from the field, 58% from deep, while making 18 free threes and also hitting 18 free throws on 25 attempts. Total control anywhere you can think of. They kept a clean offensive game. They were able to control the glass. They were exceptional in transition, and in terms of points off of turnovers, anytime you have an advantage in there of 34-8, you're doing something right, clearly. For the numbers here, Jalen Green would have 33 points, 2 rebounds, and assists on 9 of 17 shooting with 4 threes. Auburn Schengen would have 16 points, 9 rebounds, and 3 assists on 6 of 11 shooting. Fred VanVleet had 13 and 7 on 5 of 9 shooting. And then honestly, when you look at the rest of it, I mean, it comes down to team basketball. No one else outside of Jalen Green had a splash game, if you want to call it that. But anytime you can have 8 different players on one given night put up double-digit points and shoot that well also, you're definitely going to do some solid things. Also, every single player that touched the court for the Rockets ended up scoring, too, for what it's worth. Then, in their back-to-back, in a game that I watched between them and the Rockets were actually on pace. If they ended up doing what they needed to do, they were going to clinch themselves a playoff spot. And honestly, they played like a team destined to do just that. I mean, sure, the Lakers started out with the typical shots from Luka Doncic in the first quarter and things like that, but neither team could really get in a rhythm offensively. The defense was just on point, especially for the Rockets. And also, it does help that both teams really just struggled to shoot anyways. But by the end of the first quarter, you see a 19-16 ball game. You're looking at it and you're saying that this one is certainly not going to be an easy one. And granted, it stayed that way for most of the rest of the game. I mean, you know, they ended up taking the lead at halftime by 1. And then, you know, in the third quarter, they started to tail off a little bit because they got lazy on three-point shooting. I mean, the third quarter alone saw the Lakers and Gabe Benson and Dorian Finney-Smith especially go ballistic from range, because so many players were just out of position at one time They just left those shooters open, and they got exposed in that sequence. The Rockets were able to battle back a little bit, and it eventually came down to the final seconds, where they were down by a few points, and you were in search of a bucket here. Now, granted, in this situation where you see yourself down by 4 points, you're just looking for any bucket to keep the game going. Before Auburn Schengen can even think about exploiting the matchup against Austin Reeves, in comes LeBron getting a block on Schengen that would eventually seal up the ball game. They then left it up after getting the offensive rebound to Dillon Brooks shooting a 3, which he obviously missed. And they ultimately lost this game by 6. So they're still on the hunt of trying to solidify a playoff spot and clinch a playoff berth in this tough Western Conference. Again, not great spacing on the night, but the defensive intensity was there. They hung in there for a while. They just couldn't close the deal. Amen Thompson had 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists, along with 2 steals and blocks on 8 of 14 shooting. Dillon Brooks had 16 points on 5 rebounds on 5 of 14 shooting with 3 threes. Jabari Smith Jr. added 15. Auburn Schengen had 14 points, 6 assists, and 7 rebounds. And then off the bench, Tari Eason had 13. Did not help that in this one, Fred VanVleet cooled down tremendously. Just 7 points for him and 9 assists on 2 of 14 shooting. So, I mean, at this current point, they sit as the second best team in the Western Conference. But when you look at the standings here, all it takes is for the Nuggets to get just a little hot at the right time. And with at least 5 or so games left in the season, well, 6, depending on who you are, the Nuggets still have a chance to take that over. Only thing that is guaranteed in the Western Conference is that the Thunder are going to be potentially the best team in the league. They've already clinched the conference. They can't get any worse than they currently are. That's just how they've run this gauntlet. It's actually insane to think about. All right. Moving on to the Pacers, who went 7-2 over this time, and honestly, things couldn't have started out much better for them. They won their first 5 ball games after this stretch, and a couple of these came without Tyrese Halliburton. To get the action started off on March 17th, they actually had to go into overtime with the Timberwolves and came out with a 2-point victory due to the clutch ability of Obi Toppin, who in this one, in 45 minutes, had 34 points and 10 boards on 12 of 19 shooting, along with 7 3-pointers. Benedict Mathurin also had 22 points in this one on 6 of 17 shooting. TJ McConnell had an 11-point, 13 assists double-double off the bench on 5 of 12 shooting and with just 2 turnovers, while Quentin Jackson, Quentin Jackson, had to make sure I recognized who this particular player was, but he also had some solid contributions as well in place of Tyrese Halliburton. And as close as this thing got, I mean, it came down to Obi Toppin splashing a game-sealing 3 to get the job done. So this was certainly a barn burner here, and they definitely needed everything they could get out of it. But obviously there was more in store where this came from. They would then, on March 19th, get a 4-point victory against the Mavericks in a game that saw Pascal Siakam, put up 29 points and 5 assists on 11 of 16 shooting with 3 threes. Benedict Mathurin had 23 points as well, along with 7 rebounds on 6 of 12 shooting. And then Andrew Nembhard had 22 points. The rising floor general himself, court general himself, 8 assists as well, 3 boards with 7 of 14 shooting. Aaron Nesmith also added 18 points and nabbed 3 threes as well. Obi Toppin also had 3 threes and 13 points. And then Miles Turner had 9 points in a relatively quiet game. But honestly, given the Mavericks situation and given how dynamic the Pacers offense is, they were going to be solid no matter what. Then you have the Pacers winning back-to-back ball games against the Nets in a sort of pseudo-series. They won the first one by 6, and Benedict Mathurin would lead them just valiantly. I mean, 28 points and 16 boards for him, along with 3 assists on 10 of 17 shooting and 2 threes. Miles Turner had 23 points and 10 rebounds, much improved ball game, along with 5 blocks on 8 of 11 shooting. And then Aaron Nesmith also had 14 points and 6 rebounds in this ball game. Then in the next one, on March 22nd, they would get Tyrese Halliburton back, and he would put up 16 points, 8 rebounds, and 12 assists with just 2 turnovers. On 5 of 13 shooting, Miles Turner had 22 points and 8 rebounds on 8 of 14 shooting with 5 threes. And then Pascal Siakam led everyone once more with 26 points and 6 assists on a 10 of 20 shooting. They would then close off this win streak by beating the Timberwolves once more by 16 this time, with Tyrese Halliburton putting up yet another game of 24 points and 11 assists with just a single turnover in 29 minutes of play on 9 of 16 shooting, along with 3 threes. Off the bench, Obi Toppin had 20 points, straight up scoring just 6 threes right down the hatchet. Aaron Nesmith had 17 points and was perfect from the 3-point line. And then Pascal Siakam, rougher shooting for him, but he still contributed 14 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists in 31 minutes. Man. Things really came ahead in this Lakers game that I watched, and I will just put it like this to give the Pacers their credit, because the Lakers, I'm not going to lie, they had them exactly where they wanted them. Exactly where they wanted them. They went on this huge run in between the second and third quarter. By that point, you would have thought that the Pacers were out of it, but no. They battled their way back into it, and ultimately, with contributions from Benedict Mathurin, Miles Turner, and also Tyrese Halliburton at the very end, the Pacers actually had a lead going into the final few seconds of the ball game. Now, obviously, given what would happen right after with LeBron clutching it up, the Pacers would ultimately lose by that point, wasting the clutch effort of Halliburton, who would get an and one just before that Lakers possession. He would put up 16 points and 18 assists on 7 of 16 shooting with just a single 3. But 18 assists in just 1 fucking turnover. While doing what he did in this ball game, you just can't have that go unnoticed, right? I'll get to that in a second. Pascal Siakam would have 15 points, 6 rebounds, and 2 assists, along with 2 blocks and just a single turnover on 6 of 12 shooting. Miles Turner added 16 as well with 4 threes. Andrew Nembhard added 16 as well, along with 7 rebounds and 3 assists. And then Aaron Nesmith had 13 points in this one. At the end of it, when you break the numbers down, I mean, it was just a close ball game throughout. Numbers don't, like, they they kind of resemble a close game, but that's still, to watch it in real time would give you more of an idea, obviously, on how everything came to be in this one. I mean, you would think, though, with the Pacers being that opportunistic and being able to get 25 points off turnovers, they could have won the whole thing, and granted, they were that close to doing so. But still, clearly wasn't enough. They would, though, take all their anger out in the back-to-back ball game. Because you want to know who they ended up playing next year? They played the Wizards in D.C. on a back-to-back after suffering a crushing defeat at the hands of LeBron. They were pissed, and they wanted to take it out on someone. And what better team to do it against than a team who has players and teams put up record after record after record on them. That trend would continue in this ball game, as the Pacers have had multiple games with over 150 points scored over the course of the past couple years with Tyrese Halliburton being there. Not only would they log their very first 150-point ball game of the season as a team, they wanted to take it up a notch. On this night, they scored 162 points as a team. A franchise record for them. Now, with that, Tyrese Halliburton had 29 points, 6 assists, and 7 threes to lead the show. Obviously, while Halliburton's performance stands out, he was merely an individual who typically, as a point guard, right, just led the way on a virtually flawless night. Turnovers were kept to a minimum. As a team, they had a 4-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. They grabbed 50 rebounds, got 8 steals, and also shot 64% from the field, 57.4% from deep, while also setting a franchise record for most made threes in a game with 27. And they also shot 89.5% from the stripe as a squad. They dominated them. A 53-point win. With that being said, they would get a day's rest or so and then have to come right back on March 29th to face off against the Thunder in Oklahoma. And they would proceed to lose by 21. It's man, peaks and valleys of an NBA season. Peaks and valleys. Like, anything, honestly, is bound to happen. But really, when you have a game like that, you just realize how different the competition is against a team like the Thunder compared to the Wizards. Obviously, those two teams are eons apart from each other in terms of basically anything you can think about. Talent, skill, distance, wins, losses, anything you can think about, man. Just miles and miles and miles apart from each other. And the Pacers certainly felt that. Efficiency dropped off by a shit ton. Yeah. Quite literally. They could not keep pace anymore. Their offense was just too formidable to where any sort of defensive effort was really just nullified completely. It didn't end up mattering to them. They weren't phased. With that being said, though, the Pacers would close out this stretch of time by getting a 2-point victory against the Kings, in which Tyrese Halliburton had 18 points and 11 assists, on 7 of 13 shooting with 2 threes. Obi Toppin had 19 points with 5 threes on 7 of 11 shooting off the bench, along with 7 assists. Aaron Nesmith led all scorers for this squad with 24 points and 6 rebounds in 35 minutes on 7 of 16 shooting. And Jarris Walker also had 15 points off the bench. Moving on to the Clippers, who went 7-2 over this stretch of time. Obviously, they opened up their period of time with a win, 35-point win against the Charlotte Hornets, as I mentioned, with James Harden putting up 31 points. They then proceeded to have that be the start of a 3-game win streak. They beat the Cavs on March 18th by 13 in a game that saw Kawhi Leonard have one of the better performances he's had since coming back from injury, with 33 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists and steals in 35 minutes on 12 of 19 shooting with 5 threes. Ivica Zubac also had an astonishing outing. 28 points and 20 rebounds for a person who was, again, having quite literally the best season of his career. And it's not really being talked about like that. 13 of 18 shooting for the night, on the night for him. James Harden, a little bit of a struggle bus game. 5 of 18 shooting. Still, he finished with 22 points and almost a triple-double with 9 assists. Bogdan Bogdanović also, obviously he had some things to work out, with this being one of the worst seasons he's had from an efficiency standpoint, but he seemed, at least with this game, to get right back on track. This is what Bogdan Bogdanović can do for you. I mean, 20 points, 7 assists, and 4 rebounds in 29 minutes off the bench on perfect shooting, including 4 3-pointers. Norman Powell had played for just 18 minutes as well and put up 11 points with just a single 3. Derrick Jones Jr. also came in and had 10 points of his own off the bench as well with 2. Definitely sticking it to the Cavs there, and then they would face off against the Grizzlies and win by 20 on March 21st. Before, obviously, like so many teams before them, facing off against the Thunder and losing by 2. On March 23rd, they picked things back up with back-to-back wins in New York. First, by getting a 13-point victory on March 26th against the Knicks, in which Harden put up 29 points and also had 6 rebounds and assists on 8 of 16 shooting. Kawhi Leonard also had 27 points, 7 assists, and 10 boards without a single turnover on 10 of 18 shooting and 2 threes. Norman Powell had 19 points straight up with 4 threes. And Ivica Zubac had 18 points and 10 boards on the night. In a game where the Knicks just continued to be on the streak that they endured for so much time, allowing themselves to go crazy from the field as well. The Clippers would shoot 51% from the field, 53.3% from deep, and also 83.3% from the line. Ultimately, when you look at the fact that they had an advantage in the transition game with an advantage of 12 points here, and they won by 13. Take with that what you will. I mean, literally. They then beat the Nets by 32 in a game that saw Kawhi Leonard put up 31 points in 3 quarters, along with 6 rebounds and 2 assists on 10 of 14 shooting, along with 5 threes. Ivica Zubac went perfect from the field and had 21 points and 12 rebounds on 9 of 9 shooting. They whipped them boys so bad that you actually had guys like Nicholas Batum, Drew Eubanks, Kwame Brown, and even Patty Mills coming in the ball game for 7 minutes. By the way, in that time span, he put up 14 points with 3 threes and 5 fucking free throws in just 7 fucking minutes. That's just a good contribution on his end for a person that's been in the league for this much time. At the same time, that just goes to show you how shit the Nets are. I mean, oh my gosh. And you used to play with that team too. So I guess that's a way to get your revenge, I suppose. They would then drop their rematch against the Cavs by 5 in a game that saw Norm Powell put up 34 points on 13 of 24 shooting with 5 threes, and Ivica Zubac put up 14 points and 13 rebounds on 7 of 14 shooting. But I mean, having no Kawhi here hurt and had to a little bit. They would get him right back, though, and they would win their matchup on the 31st against the Magic by 9. A game that saw Kawhi put up 21, 8 and 2 on 8 of 22 shooting. Ivica Zubac also had 18 points, 20 rebounds, and 5 assists with just a single turnover and on 7 of 10 shooting from the field. Norman Powell also added 21 points and 4 rebounds on 8 of 14 shooting with 3 threes. Currently, they sit as the 8th seed in the Western Conference. They are just a half a game behind the Timberwolves at this point. The Grizz, Timberwolves, and Clippers each have 32 losses. I don't think that the Clippers will go on such a horrible streak to where they're going to fall to the 9 or 10 spot, but you want to at least keep pace with the other teams here. And I suppose if there is a way for them to make it out of the play-in, then by all means go for it. But they should be fine for the most part, especially with their matchup tonight. I don't see them dropping that game at all. Moving on to the Lakers, who in this span, they went 6-4. And not only that, some of their losses were just so god awful. There's no better way for me to say it. Now, granted, dating back to some of the games I covered from March 1st to the 15th, I believe if we go back to this Bucks game on March 13th, they actually ended up playing 10 games in 15 days. Which is certainly going to be taxing to some capacity. Obviously, in the early portion of this stretch, they were still without LeBron. He was still hurt. But I mean, like, some of those excuses are just kind of old, especially when you look at this and see that they got out to a 3-game winning streak to start things off. I mean, they did beat the Suns on the 16th in a game that saw Luka Doncic put up 33 points, 11 rebounds, and 8 assists in 40 minutes of play on 8 of 20 shooting, with Austin Reeves also contributing 28 and 4 threes, and Jackson Hayes putting up 19 points. Then, their next game here against the Spurs saw them win by 16. Granted, weaker Spurs team, sure, but their players were performing. Their defense was relatively fine. Yes, the Spurs are definitely in a desolate place. But for Austin Reeves to put up 30 points, 6 assists, and 7 rebounds here on 12-21 shooting with 5 threes, and then Luka Doncic putting up 21 points as well with 14 assists and 9 rebounds, though on relatively lackluster shooting, they still dominated their competition here. The game against the Nuggets on the 19th, their defense withered a little bit, and we started to see the signs of what was to come here, honestly, because they did let things get away from them just a little bit. Still, you could afford it to an extent when you had a player in Luka Doncic put up something like 24 points in just the first quarter alone. He didn't even have to do all that much afterwards. They got out to a 46-29 lead after that, and they never looked back. Never. He finished the game with 31 points and 8 rebounds and 7 assists on 10 of 21 shooting, along with 4 threes made. Austin Reeves also had 22 points and 8 assists on 8 of 16 shooting. And then Dorian Finney-Smith had 14 points and 3 threes, while Dalton Knecht and Gabe Vincent both had 12 with multiple threes. Jared Vanderbilt also had 10 points off the bench with 3 steals, 2 rebounds, and an assist in 18 minutes of play. Then shit would get drastic. Yes, they were still without LeBron here in this game against the Bucks on the 20th. Luka Doncic was also going to sit this one out, and so was Austin Reeves. And from that point, yeah, this game against the Bucks got terrible for them. I mean, Bronny James, for crying out loud, played 30 minutes off the bench. Something that would usually never happen. Still, he put up a career-high 17 points on 7 of 10 shooting and 2 threes. Dalton Knecht also had 17. But really, with Markieff Morris and Gabe Vincent getting this kind of burn and not shooting well in any capacity, and honestly just being overmatched, I mean, you got to keep in mind that the Bucks are still at somewhat full strength here. They still had Giannis. Nobody on that court was going to put a stop to him. Even Jackson Hayes. He not going to stop no Giannis, bro. So, they lost by 29. Yeah. Just not a good draw for them here. And then they would face off against the Bulls for the first time. As I mentioned, they lost by 31. Now, in this game, LeBron did actually come back, but didn't necessarily do a ton. I mean, 17 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 steals, and 31 minutes on 7 of 16 shooting. Cool. Austin Reeves had 25 points as well with 5 assists on 9 of 13 shooting, and then Luka Doncic had 34 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists on 10 of 18 shooting with 8 threes, but also 7 turnovers. Like I said, Bulls were just fucking clamping their asses. And they would have to face that wrath again. But not before first facing off against the Magic and losing by 12 in a game that saw Luka Doncic put up 32 points, 7 rebounds, and 7 assists, all on 9 of 23 shooting. LeBron would put up 24 points, 7 assists, and 6 rebounds in this one on 9 of 18 shooting. And then Austin Reeves would have 18 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists on 7 of 16 shooting. No bench help. Certainly hurt. I mean, Rui Hachimura was obviously just returning from injury as well. So I guess you're trying to work him back and let him get in as much reps as he wants. But let's be honest. The fact that 5 different players appeared off the bench for the Lakers and Rui Hachimura had 5 to lead all scorers here, without anyone else doing much of anything outside of Dalton Knecht. You know, he did have just 3 points, but played just 5 minutes. Likely he got hurt. So, yeah, that was not great at all. But yeah, you saw a combination of just, like, I guess, reckless offense at times with this team, and then also just poor defense down the stretch of all of these ball games. If not for LeBron's tip-in against the Pacers game that I watched live on March 26th, they would have lost this game too in yet another fashion. And ultimately, that would have placed them on a 5-game losing streak in a situation where they are also trying to clinch firm seeding in the playoffs. That would have been costly for them. But granted, while it is good that he was able to pull it off, at the same time, a bunch of other craziness happened around that. Obviously, he was on the Pat McAfee show earlier in the day and had an hour plus long conversation with him, taking shots at the media and everyone. And that entire thing funneled into days and days and days worth of just back and forth between Stephen A. Smith and LeBron. It's probably still going to take place, just I guess in, I don't know about quieter capacity. I mean, we'll see what happens with it. But as far as this particular game goes here, LeBron, to start things out, did not perform well at all. He had just 2 points or something in the first half. He didn't even make a field goal until the fourth quarter, I believe. As crazy as that sounds. But where my problem with this lies is that the end of the game, in a moment that's suspenseful, I don't care what form of media you work for, you gotta do your best to account for everything. As I mentioned, prior to LeBron getting that tip in, you had Tyrese Halliburton get an and one on Luka Doncic that gave the Pacers the lead temporarily. It was a great sequence of events that needed to be shown in full capacity for proper context. And what did the NBA channel decide to do? Recognizing that? For whatever reason, I'm not even going to give them a chance at any sort of excuse. They cut out the sequence where Tyrese Halliburton makes that play and gives the Pacers the lead. And then they skip it right along to the Lakers' possession, on which LeBron James got the game-winning tip and buzzer beater. Fucking crazy. There is no shot that that should have happened. And it's the NBA channel doing it. Like, you know, if you are a person that didn't watch the game last night, you would be of the belief that things played out exactly as the NBA channel put it out, because you're likely going to go to the source, because you're supposed to have that kind of trust in them, I guess, that they'll display everything that is relevant. Now, naturally, in some of these highlight sequences from any channel that does these kinds of basketball highlight videos, they will cut out some of the more insignificant plays in these games to save time and put out a watchable product. There's not a lot of dead ball action that gets put in videos, for example, unless it's a situation where, like what happened last night in the Nuggets game. That's important to the context. They're going to place that in. So it's not to say that they would not have a moment of that magnitude in there, and should not. They've done it before. Why switch it up when we're involving a game against the Lakers? Why switch that up now? That play that Halliburton had is relevant to the context. You're, in the future, if you come across that video, in particular, because again, you're likely not thinking about going to other pages like House of Highlights and things like that, who may have honestly shown that specific portion. And they will also, too, in some of these other channels, they'll go out of their way to dedicate entire videos to the last few minutes of such and such ball game, to give pure focus on those moments of time. They're intentional about that, and they're supposed to be. Here, you just remove that context, and therefore, you remove a part of history, honestly. I mean, yes, with that, you now recognize that LeBron would be tied for the second most, or I guess he's just right at second, most game-winning buzzer beaters in NBA history, and he's just one game behind Michael Jordan for first. You know that after this game ends, but you don't necessarily know how he got there if you didn't watch it live. Because it's just going to be a one-and-done deal with you looking at the highlights from the actual NBA channel that is verified on YouTube. You're going to go there, you're going to watch it for just the one time, and then most fans are just going to move on without any knowledge of what Halliburton did in the moment. And that's just not, it's just not right. It's not right. So again, yet another moment where there's just a stain on it. Now, same case here, where you get the Bulls sending them off with a Josh Giddey game winner from half court in a game where, despite Austin Reeves' 30 points and 3 assists on 10 of 17 shooting, despite Luka Doncic's 25 points, 8 assists, and 10 rebounds on 8 of 22 shooting, LeBron and his struggles, especially late, cost them this one. Yet they did the right thing in this one by at least showing how the hell things unfolded. They showed the turnovers and everything. So again, it's not that they haven't done this thing before. Why intentionally go out of your way to take that out? I still don't get that, to be completely honest with you. I just don't. Then they would beat the Grizzlies on March 29th by 7 in a game which saw Austin Reeves put up 31 points on the night, along with 7 rebounds and 8 assists on 8 of 16 shooting with 5 threes. Luka Doncic would have 29 points, 8 rebounds, and 9 assists with 2 steals on 8 of 18 shooting. And then LeBron James on 10 of 21 shooting would have his best night in his first 25-point ball game since returning, putting up exactly 25 with 3 steals, 8 assists, and 6 rebounds, along with 2 threes. It also helped that Dorian Finney-Smith, Rui Hachimura, and Gabe Benson all had 11, 13, and 15, respectively, with multiple threes on the night. And then they beat the Rockets by 6, as I mentioned earlier on. Obviously, Luka Doncic led the way with 20 points and 9 rebounds on just 6 of 16 shooting. Like I said, in this one, neither team shot particularly well, but with that flurry of three-pointers, the Lakers were able to overcome it at the right time and eventually pull away. Moving on to the Grizzlies, who over this stretch of time went 1-7 to continue a 10-game period which has seen them go a combined 2-8. So when I tell you that they were desperate for a win, they were desperate for one coming into last night's bowl game against Golden State. I mean, things got started off with a 3-game losing streak against the Kings, Blazers, and Clippers, respectively, despite Desmond Bane putting up 44 points in this first game against the Kings. They still lost by 10. They lost by 16 and gave up 115 points. They lost by 20 and gave up 128 to the Clippers, prior to winning against the Jazz by 37. Obviously, you're going to be given that. It's the Jazz. I mean, if you can't beat them at this point, something's wrong with you. But, I mean, quite literally, even dating back to this full 10-game streak, every single game the Grizzlies have lost. A team that is usually known for their defense gave up 115 points, at least 115 points, in every single one of their losses. Things got so bad for them that eventually they were going to make a decision that I don't understand, and I will get into it at the end of the video, even though it is relevant to them. Because right after that, they would go on another 4-game losing streak, adding in this Warriors game from last night, in which they lost to the Thunder by 21 while giving up 125 points. Losing to the Lakers, as I just mentioned, by 7 while giving up 134 points. Even with them getting great contributions from a litany of their guys. And then even in this matchup against the Celtics that I watched, the Grizzlies were trying to make their way back, but then you give up an overall run of 48-32 to lose by 14, and then give up 117 points in this one. I mean, this Warriors matchup, it wasn't like, yes, they lost, and it's horrible. It wasn't without effort, though. I mean, Ja Morant himself had 36 points and 6 assists on 14 of 22 shooting with 5 threes. Because I guess he always seems to go crazy against the Warriors. Obviously, dating back to the 22 second round of the playoffs. Always, all the time. It never fails, really. Jaren Jackson Jr. would have 22 points and 7 rebounds as well. Santi Aldama had 18 points off the bench and even gave the Grizzlies a 3 with elite with some of the shots that he was making. He had 4 threes and shot 6 of 11 from the field. Desmond Bane also had 19 points, 5 assists, 2 steals, a block, and 4 rebounds on 6 of 15 shooting. I didn't even know that Marvin Bagley III got burned in this ball game. But yeah, I guess it was for a relatively short amount of time. Nonetheless, man, I mean, you know, it's just crazy for them right now. They've got to figure it out. And honestly, again, I'll get into it later. But again, with the decision that they made, I don't see how they're gonna do that anytime soon. They currently sit as a 6th seed in the Western Conference. But, once more, that loss gave the Warriors the 5th seed, as they are now a half game above them. And then you are in the same spot. You are essentially tied for the 6th seed with the Timberwolves. You cannot afford to continue going on this slide, or they're going to actually screw themselves out of a potential playoff spot. For what it's worth, too, over the next stretch of games, they do actually face off against the Timberwolves one more time on a nationally televised bout on April the 10th. They better get their shit together before then. And I guess you better just hope that the Timberwolves drop some games. Because if momentum carries a certain way, you may actually be in a spot where the Timberwolves either... Because I guess I need to check real quick. How proficient, just to say, have the Timberwolves been against the Grizzlies this season? Let me just check this out really quickly. Now, obviously, majority of their matchups were earlier in the season. Obviously, they had a bout on MLK Day in January, where the Grizzlies won. Yes, the Grizzlies won again on January 11th. Any other earlier games here? No. So, okay, I guess. Okay, that does kind of help you a little bit. But still, you want to be riding positive momentum going into a game like that. Either way, the Grizzlies are going to hold the tiebreaker over them. But they've lost too many games to where now, in terms of games behind first, you're even with them. Even though you've beaten them head-to-head twice. You've got to turn things around, or you are not going to have a fun final stretch of games here. Seriously. It's just atrocious. It starts with their defense. I mean, oh my God. Like, some of these offensive performances are quite fun, but that defense, if you're going to continue to give that up, good luck. Moving on to the Heat, who went 5-3 over the course of action from March 16th to April 1st. Now, granted, while they have picked things up in their past few ball games, they reached, by their standards, rock bottom. And I mean, it was looking drastic in Miami. They came into this on a large losing streak, and then they would take part in a match on March 17th against the Knicks, which saw them keep things competitive early on. But by the time the game started really getting out of hand in the second quarter, you had Karl-Anthony Towns go on a 15-0 run by himself, on par with a 29-18 overall run for the Knicks. Then, later on in the game, in the third quarter, as the Heat were trying to make this much closer, they allowed a 41-15 run against this Knicks squad, just letting them bang in three-pointer after three-pointer and get whatever the hell they wanted. It was just automatic for them. And this was all in the third quarter, along with Mikal Bridges going on a 9-0 personal run and also putting up 15 points in that third quarter, which, ironically enough, the Heat as a whole only put up 15 points in this quarter. The damage was done, and despite them winning the fourth quarter, they still lost by 21 points and gave up 116 to the Knicks squad. Even with Tyler Hero putting up 20 and Duncan Robinson putting up 22 with 5 threes, it wasn't nearly enough. Then you move on into one of the games I watched as well, along with this Knicks game in the Pistons that I talked about earlier. I will bring it up for the Heat here because I did not mention this fact for the Pistons' view of this, obviously. But Tyler Hero actually made the free throws that gave the Heat a temporary lead before Cade Cunningham did what he did. And given what the hell was going on, they couldn't afford to necessarily keep dropping these games. They had to turn it around at some point. But alas, their stretch continued. And quite literally, with that, Eric Spoelstra would reach 9 consecutive losses, which became the longest such streak he has ever faced as a head coach, and the longest such streak that the Heat have ever faced with him at the helm. Never before seen stuff here. It would only get worse as he would actually get Andrew Wiggins back for this game against the Rockets on March 21st, which saw them lose by 4, despite Andrew Wiggins putting up 30 points in 30 minutes on 10 of 13 shooting with 2 threes. Bam Adebayo and Khalil Ware each had 16 points, and Khalil Ware also added 14 rebounds on his end. They've got to appreciate the play that they've been getting from him in conjunction with all of the other mess that has gone on. That's been one of their bright spots all season long. No denying that. But another tough loss and a now 10-game losing streak for a person regarded as one of the best coaches of all time. Shit got so bad that different people in the NBA media space were just calling for Pat Riley's job and begging him to retire, which honestly, given his age, he's probably much closer to doing than we really think right now. But it's just like that just goes to show you the full scale of this thing. Now, luckily for them, this game against the Hornets would kind of give them the juice they needed. In his second game back, Andrew Wiggins put up 42 points, as the Heat would win by 17 against this squad. All of this in 35 minutes of play and on 16 of 21 shooting with 6 damn threes. It didn't hurt that Tyler Hero also pitched in 29 points on 11 of 19 shooting with a couple threes of his own. They had shot way better from the field overall, and they were able to do a great job of controlling the pace of the game. Ultimately, with a team as just lowly as the Hornets have been, if they could get those things to work, you would naturally blow them out of the water, which is exactly what ended up happening. I mentioned the Warriors game in which they ended up winning by 26 on March 25th. They then ripped off 3 more wins against the Hawks by 10, as I mentioned, in a game that saw Tyler Hero put up 36. By 23 against the 76ers on March 29th, in a game that saw Tyler Hero put up 30. And then in a game on the 31st against the Wizards, who else? Winning by a final score of 120-94, where Bam Adebayo put up 28 points, 12 rebounds, and 5 assists, all on 11 of 19 shooting. Tyler Hero also pitched in 27 points and 5 assists. And Pelle Lawson, in what I believe is his first start as an NBA player, put up 15 points as well, though he didn't make a 3. Terry Rozier III also had 15 points off the bench, and Jaime Jaquez Jr. had 14 with 2 threes and 7 rebounds and 3 steals. So they currently sit at 9th in the Eastern Conference as of the recording of this video. Again, the Bulls are right there. But honestly, there's so much distance between the 10 and 11 seeds that, again, barring anything drastic, they could still be fine. Once more, though, you want to go in here on winning terms. You do not, I repeat, you do not want to enter games with high stakes like this on losing streaks. It just does not, it doesn't bode well for you, to be completely honest. Alright, moving on to the Bucks. And from March 16th to April 1st, they went 3-6. They opened up with back-to-back losses against the Thunder in a game that I watched live, and then against the Warriors by 11, as I mentioned earlier. As far as this Thunder game goes, I mean, their defense just clamped them down in the most important moments. They weren't even remotely efficient from the field at all, and that cost them. I mean, also, too, with the likes of Gary Trent Jr., Damian Lillard, Kevin Porter Jr., Kyle Kuzma, Brook Lopez even, all of them just shot horrifically from the field given their respective positions. And then they also, again, on the defensive side of the ball, they faltered completely. Especially in the second quarter, giving up 29 points and losing that specific quarter by 14. Then, afterwards, they would rip off back-to-back wins against the Lakers, as I mentioned, and then against the Kings in a game that saw Giannis put up 32 points, 17 rebounds, and also 3 assists on 12 of 20 shooting. Brook Lopez added in 21 on 8 of 15 shooting, and Kevin Porter Jr. also had 18 points, 6 assists, and 3 rebounds off the bench on 8 of 10 shooting with a couple threes. This 4-game losing streak would see them undergo something pretty drastic, as while I could save this for the end of the video, it becomes relevant here because, yes, naturally in the Bucks position, you want to ensure that you remain victorious so as not to drop below the play-in, but they would lose Damian Lillard, at least for an indefinite period of time, due to finding deep vein thrombosis in his system as well. Now, obviously, earlier on and around the last segment, it was stated that, a couple segments ago regarding NBA coverage detailed how Victor Wembanyama dealt with this diagnosis of the specific condition in his shoulder. The difference here is that this form of deep vein thrombosis, this blood clot that they found in Damian Lillard's body, was actually in his calf. So he had to sit out indefinitely. He was automatically placed on blood thinners so as to rid it of that. And naturally, it will be a little bit before he returns to action. Now, they haven't ruled him out for the rest of the season. He's on the injured list. But there was a different report within the past couple of days that stated that they would look back into his availability over the next 7 to 10 days. If they could get him back, that's excellent. But it's rough sailing to start things out without him. I mean, look no further than the Suns game that was here. They got very, very close to making something happen. Only they lost this game by 2. Despite Giannis putting up 31 points and 10 rebounds, and Brook Lopez even putting up 23 points and 10 rebounds. The Suns were, honestly, they just really got the last word here. I mean, it came down to Devin Booker having to hit a game-winning shot for them to take the win. Sometimes that just can't be controlled. They would then lose to the Nuggets by 10, as I mentioned. They lost to the Knicks by 9 in another game that sees yet another Eastern Conference team unable to beat some of their rival competition. Now, granted, the Knicks have infamously struggled with it this season. The Bucks aren't too far off from it. And that flared up as far as this ball game goes. Then they lost on March 30th by 21 to the Hawks, as I mentioned earlier on. And to open up April, they did get their get back, beating the Suns on national television in a game that did see them set some really good markers for history. The Suns were able to keep their pace a little bit with some of their three-point shooting in the later quarters following, but still wasn't enough. The Bucks would go on a 32-20 overall run in between the third and fourth quarter and eventually close it out, despite allowing a few more buckets to go the Suns' way down the stretch. Now, as far as this goes, Giannis would have the fourth most games in NBA history with at least 35 points on higher than 65% shooting from the field, bringing his total to 62 with the end of this one. And also, Doc Rivers became, on this night, the sole placeholder for 7th all-time in wins as an NBA coach, with the number standing at 1,156 as of the end of that game. Tremendous work for them. They currently sit as the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. They have a 5-game advantage on the Magic. So, you've just, again, Doesn't really take much, shouldn't really take much, but you got to find those winning ways and fast. I mean, yes, would the Bucks be a mismatch for anybody currently in the play-in? Probably, but you have too much expectations on the line to settle for just making that. So you've got to perform in these next few ball games. Moving on to the Timberwolves, who also went 5-3 over this time. They did open up with a 26-point win against the Jazz, in which Anthony Edwards put up 41. Then lost back-to-back games against the Pacers and the Pelicans before bringing it all back against New Orleans with a 134-93 victory that saw the likes of Julius Randle put up 20 points on 7-11 shooting with 2 threes. And also, 7 different players on the squad put up at least double-digit points. They just could not be stopped from getting their shots. I mean, 53.9% from the field, and also 21 overall shot attempts made up the difference. Just kind of displaying how they were able to get them out of their element. They were then able to suffer another loss against the Pacers on March 24th before ripping 3 straight wins against the Suns by 15, against the Pistons by 19, with Julius Randle leading the way in both. And also, as far as the Detroit game goes, even with all of the controversies, it seemed like Rudy Gobert's play was not affected at all. I mean, the man goes out there and puts up 19 points with 25 rebounds by himself. So, do with that what you will. And then in this game against the Nuggets, as I mentioned, you've got to give credit where credit is due, because the Nuggets had their number to open things up. But with Anthony Edwards getting 24 points in the fourth quarter and overtime periods, and with other players stepping up and hitting huge shots, I mean, they deserved it. They worked their way up into it, and that's all you can ask for sometimes. The Pelicans went 3-4 over this time, losing against the Pistons on multiple occasions, the first by 46 and then the next one by 6, despite C.J. McCollum going off in that one for 40. They also split their back-to-back against the Timberwolves and ripped off wins against the 76ers by 13 and against the Hornets by 14, as I just mentioned, along with the Warriors gifting them a loss right in the middle of that period of time. I mean, again, we know that they are not going anywhere, and in fact, while they aren't, you can make the arguments that at the very least other people might be out of the door at this point, because I don't know how much faith some of these people have in their core guys. I mean, as great as Zion and McCollum can be, there was a report that came out that both of them are going to be ruled out for the rest of the season, both due to contusions of some kind. So it just gets rougher and rougher for New Orleans on the daily down there. Truly. Moving on to the Knicks, who went 6-3 over this time span. Though honestly, you could make the argument that pretty much all of these games have been against weakened opponents when you really think about it. It might be a little convenient to use that argument, but no, seriously. You face off against the Heat without them being at full strength. And also, 26.1% shooting on their end. While it's definitely a great testament to the Knicks defense in this one, certainly wouldn't be the standard for them. They've been on the better end of it. And, that defense eventually did not last them for the next couple of games at least, because they lost both of them by 15 and 17 respectively, while also giving up over 116 points, or at least 115 points in each one. They then beat the Wizards because, of course, by 19. They beat the Mavericks by 25, despite OG Anunoby putting up 35 points. Where, honestly, this could have been really it for the Knicks on this stretch of time. And even then, they are still without Jalen Brunson, so you never really know. Then we get to the Clippers, they lose by 13. Then the Bucks, as depleted as they are, and the weak Trailblazers get a 17-point win on the squad. And that is just crazy. I'm not going to lie. But to open up April, they would now extend their win streak to 3 with a 14-point win against the 76ers. The one thing with this stretch is, though, that, again, you got to run into a team that is particularly good at what they do. And I do not believe that will stand, but we'll see about it. Moving on to the Thunder, who, over this stretch of time, went on an 8-game undefeated streak to continue what would eventually become a 10-game winning streak. One of the hottest teams in the NBA by the end of this stretch. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And the thing about every one of them, too, is that they have won in every single way you can think of. You want a close matchup? Look at the Thunder. Well, look at the game against the Pistons. At least against the Clippers during this span, on March 23rd, in which they had to stave off a hungry Clippers team, with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander putting up 26. You want blowouts? How about a 33-point victory by the 76ers on March 19th, in a game that saw Aaron Wiggins put up 26 points on this night? Another addition to this storyline as well would be that Jalen Williams, out of Arkansas, not the Jalen Williams we know was drafted by Santa Clara, that Jalen Williams put up a 19-point, 17-rebound, 11-assist ball game for his first career triple-double, while shooting 7 of 11 from the field, making 3 threes as well. Isaiah Joe also had 21 points in a starting role, and Chet Holmgren also added 19 points and 7 rebounds. That shit is crazy. And then a lot of these other ones are convincing. They did open up by beating the Bucks by 16 on March 16th, and then won by 35 against the Hornets on March 21st, won by 16 against the Kings on March 25th, and then facing off against the Grizzlies and doing away with them immediately, to the point where they just completely got themselves out of the ballgame. The Bulls would also lose this matchup against the Thunder on March 31st, which saw Isaiah Joe set a career high in points with 31 on the night, along with 2 rebounds and 24 minutes of play on 10 of 17 shooting, along with 8 threes. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 27 points and 2 threes, and Jalen Williams from Santa Clara would return, bring his butt back home, and put up 27 points on 9 of 14 shooting, along with 7 free throws. Like everybody produced to some capacity. Once more, another game with 7 scorers of 10 or more. They would also beat the Pacers by 21, as I mentioned earlier in the video. They are firm atop the Western Conference. They've clinched the best record in the league as well at this point. So it's pretty wild to see when you think about it. Moving on to the Magic, who went 5-3 during this time. They lost. Well, they beat the Cavs, as I mentioned way earlier on, to break their historic winning streak for their franchise. They then lost by 8 to the Rockets on March 19th, ripped off 3 consecutive wins against the Wizards by 15, Lakers by 12, and Hornets by 7 in a matter of just 4 days. Then went back home and played Dallas, the Kings, and the Clippers for the home stretch. They've won only the Sacramento Kings game on March 29th and lost both in semi-climactic cases. They would add an additional win on the first to give themselves a 6-3 record in a game that saw Paolo Banchero lead the way with 24 points and 10 boards on the night, along with 9 of 21 shooting. Franz Wagner also had 24 points, and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope finally decided to hit some shots. 7 threes, 23 points as a starter, and 8 of 11 shooting. It's craziness. They'd been waiting all season for it. So, he's a good player, but to show that now, that's not really doing them any service. I'm not going to lie. Anyways, moving on to the Philadelphia 76ers, who have been legitimately one of the coldest teams, granted all season long, but especially in this stretch of time. They finished off this period with a 1-9 record, and by 1-9, I literally mean that they opened things up by beating the Mavericks by 5 points. As I mentioned earlier on in the video, with Quentin Grimes activating some shit that he's never had in his NBA career and leading them in scoring. There would be multiple games he would continue to do this, including a 46-point ball game against the Rockets. But they obviously lost that game. In really, it's just crushing every time to get that close, to work for extra time, and then still come up just short. But that's where the losses started, and from there things just racked up, and it's been getting bad in every single one of them. Every single one of them. Up until just the Knicks game last night. They gave up. Well, the Knicks game on April 1st, they gave up at least 115 or 110 points in every single one, and 115 points at least 7 different fucking times. That's pitiful. 133 to the Thunder, lose by 33. 128 to the Spurs, lose by 8. 132 to the Hawks on March 23rd, lose by 13. And then they lost to the Pelicans by a score of 112 to 99. They lost to the Wizards 119 to 114. They lost to the Heat 118 to 95. And then they lost to the Raptors 127 to 109. Things would not change at all, as they would suffer a 14-point loss yesterday. So I just really don't know about the conditions of those fans up in Philadelphia right now. I would just say to be careful, because, man, this is just, it cannot go down this way. You've got to do something, anything at this point. Like, play for some pride out there. Moving on to the Suns, who went 4-5 during this stretch. Now, granted, they did go on a short 4-game winning streak in between March 17th and March 24th after losing to the Lakers to open things up in a game that I mentioned earlier, ripping off a 40-point win against the Raptors, a 6-point win against the Bulls, as I mentioned, an 11-point win against the Cavs, which saw Kevin Durant put up 42, and then the aforementioned victory against the Bucks, which saw Kevin Durant put up 38 points. Their defense is still porous as shit. And this 4-game losing streak since the March 26th match against the Celtics that I watched and saw them absolutely collapse. They had no rotational defense in there at all. And it got to a point where they were getting beaten so badly that Baylor Shireman and all the other reserves were calling up the bench to get some action in. Then they lost to the Timberwolves after that, giving up 124 points. Against the Rockets on March 30th, they proceeded to lose by 39 in a game that I mentioned earlier, as they gave up 148 fucking points to this team. And I mean, quite literally, if we want to make it even crazier, bruh, they got clamped up by the Rockets so damn bad that in terms of legitimate starters, only Devin Booker and Kevin Durant hit double digits. No one else did a goddamn thing here. Colin Gillespie, just 3 in 23 minutes. Ryan Dunn, just 2 in 19. Nick Richards, just 6 in 19. Even the bench unit could not really muster up any will to reach double-digit scoring. The only player that did so was Monte Morris, who put up 10. That is pitiful. And then, obviously, as I mentioned earlier on, they gave away the victory to the Bucks and lost by 10, giving up 133 points. They tried to rally back late, I'll give them that, but they literally could not buy a stop. Even with Devin Booker putting up 39 points and 11 assists on this night on relatively inefficient shooting, still did his best to carry him. Colin Gillespie was also trying to catch fire again late. Even Grayson Allen, I hate to admit it, he was hitting a few shots in timely moments, but it still did not get the job done for him at all, especially when you allow a Bucks squad to shoot 68.9% from the field, 58.6% from deep, and 93.3% from the line. Even with them being weakened with the Damian Lillard injury, they do that to you and carve up your scheme like that. Yeah, you're probably not going to win ball games that way. I can't be surprised that they lost that much. And with this losing streak, they also lost their spot, temporary spot, in the play-in. The Kings overtook them, I believe. Yes. They have an entire game lead on them. So that should get really interesting. Moving on to the Trailblazers, and over this stretch of time, they went 5-4. They ripped off 4 straight wins after a losing streak sent them into this specific period of time. They won by 3 against the Raptors. They won by 15 against the Wizards, of course. Deni Avdija had a monster game, monster back-to-back games, if we want to be honest. 31-16-8 for him on March 19th against the Grizzlies in a 16-point win. And then against the Nuggets in a matchup that saw the Trailblazers pull off a crazy upset that I wasn't even anticipating at all, Deni Avdija then put up 36-8-7. Like I said, he's been turning it up over these past couple of months, man, since the All-Star break. He really has. Even with those contributions, though, against, I guess, better defenses, they face some trouble. Big trouble. Because they would then proceed to lose 4 straight once more. Celtics are obviously a very good defense. They tried to keep it competitive with them, but they were overmatched. They lost by 11 to the Cavs, as again, they gave Cleveland a run for their money, but Cleveland is also too deep, too formidable of an opponent. They then lost by 21 to the Kings on March 27th, and then despite Danny Avdija putting up 33 points and 4 assists, they ultimately lost to the Knicks by 17. It also helped as well that Shaedon Sharpe had 23 points on the night, but hurt them tremendously when you look at what Anthony Simons did. This man had just 15 points in 35 minutes, shooting 5 of 20 from the field. Yeah, no wonder. Like, oh my fucking gosh, that's horrible. But against the Hawks, they would get right, giving themselves a 14-point win on April 1st, with Shaedon Sharpe getting a starting role and putting up 33 points on 11 of 25 shooting with 3 threes and 10 rebounds. Danny Avdija also had another triple-double with 32 points, 15 rebounds, and 10 assists on 11 of 21 shooting. 3 threes for him as well. And then Manny Kamara also had 18 points on 8 of 10 shooting and 2 threes. It's just interesting. Like I said, with all of these young players emerging, it's going to be interesting to see how and what they even plan on doing with Jeremy Grant at this point. Because, like, literally, it's just what do you even do at that point? How do you go about this? Do you retain his services? Do you let these young guys flourish? It's a really interesting spot to be in if you are Portland right now. Moving on to the Kings, who went 3-6 in this time. As I mentioned, they had back-to-back wins against the Grizzlies and the Cavs before dropping their next 4 against the Bulls, Bucks, Celtics, and Thunder, respectively. They would then beat the Trailblazers, as I just mentioned, with Zach LaVine going off for 29 points in this one, in a 21-point victory on 13 of 18 shooting with 2 threes. Domantas Sabonis had 22 points, 19 rebounds, and 6 assists on 9 of 11 shooting, along with a single 3. DeMar DeRozan also pitched in 21 points and 10 assists, weirdly enough, on 6 of 10 shooting. And Keegan Murray had 17 points and 7 rebounds on 7 of 11 shooting with 2 threes. After that, though, they would suffer back-to-back losses at the hands of the Magic by 30, as I mentioned, and at the hands of the Pacers by just a couple points late, as I mentioned. Moving on to the Spurs, who went 3-6 in this time. They opened things up with a loss against the Lakers by 16. Definitely just not going to be a ball game that they even stand a chance in, barring any craziness. You would think that the next one would be the case too, in a game in which they faced off against the Knicks. One player had a different mindset here, and that would be none other than Sandro Mamukelashvili, former Milwaukee Buck, getting in some starting reps for the Spurs here in this ball game. And let's just say that he went ballistic against the Knicks team, who is just honestly weird, because I guess I didn't talk about it with them, but I guess it is relevant to both parties. This man, Mamukelashvili, I guess he came off the bench. But in 19 minutes of play, this man put up 34 points, 9 rebounds, and 3 assists, a career high on 13 of 14 shooting, with 7 of 7 shooting from deep. What the fuck? What in the actual fuck? The Knicks were certainly having to ask themselves some questions, because to allow this to a player who, outside of hardcore Spurs fans and I guess just general watchers who do understand about some of the role players on these respective teams, the casual fan does not know a lick about who this guy is. And he just torched one of the supposedly premier teams, supposedly the third best team in the Eastern Conference, for fucking 34 points and damn near perfect shooting all over the fucking court. So to have this shit happen, the Knicks are certainly going to have some problems. And, I mean, I guess it doesn't do much for the Spurs other than just instill some pride in them. They did rip off a couple more consecutive wins with an 8-point win against the 76ers and then a 34-point win against the Raptors, in which Devin Vassell led the way with 25. They would then proceed to lose their next 5 straight. Yeah. Granted, losses to the Pistons, Cavs, Celtics, Warriors, and, I mean, I guess outside of the Magic, most of those are very great teams. I mean, that's a given. Still, to give up 148 points to Golden State, despite allowing Stephen Curry to score just 13 points, is a pretty bad look on your end. But what do you really expect them to do at this point? And then again, an 11-point loss to the Magic to close things out for them. I do understand it. You know, it just... They have quite the way back to undergo next season. I'll say that. A lot of stuff has to be figured out, simply put. But, moving on to the Raptors, who over this stretch of time would end up going 3-5. They ripped off 4 straight losses to open things up, despite Scotty Barnes' best efforts, with 3-point losses to both the Warriors and Blazers. Then a 40-point loss to the Suns in the middle of that, and after the Warriors loss, a 34-point loss to the Spurs on March 23rd, as I just mentioned. They did rip off 3 straight wins, with Orlando Robinson, former Heat center, leading the way in this Nets match that saw them win by 30, and him put up 23 points and 12 rebounds. They also had help from Jakob Poeltl in the next game they had against the Hornets in an 11-point victory, as I mentioned, with Jakob Poeltl putting up 24 and 12. Then in an 18-point victory against the 76ers, R.J. Barrett led the way with 31 points scored. They then proceeded to open up April by losing by 19 points and giving up 137 as well. Pitiful. They're the 11th seed. They, again, are 6 games behind the play-in. There's just no real way for them to do much of anything with just 6 games left as well. Like, you're just trying to play catch up like that. You may as well just finish out the season just like winging it, really. Do whatever you can. It doesn't really have an impact on what's going to happen. You're just going to miss out on the play and potential playoff berth as well. No way back from it. Moving on to the Jazz, who over this stretch of time they went 1-8. Still just continues a months-long streak now where they've won so little games. But at the very least, I guess you'll just take one when you can get it. Because, I mean, quite literally, they just, outside of the Hornets match, because granted the Hornets are just as bad, but every single one of these particular losses have been blowouts. I mean, they haven't even stood a chance. 26 to the Timberwolves to open things up. By 14 to the Bulls. They won by 16 against the Wizards because I guess they just may be a little worse. Or they're really on the same par, honestly. Is there really a difference? I don't know. Anyways, they lost by 22 to the Celtics in the very next ball game. then lost by 37 to the Grizzlies, as I mentioned, then lost by 11 to the Rockets, then 36 to the Nuggets on March 28th. Like, it's one thing to have a bad record, I guess. You could argue that, to an extent, the Pistons were in a similar position last season, where in some of their losses on their crazy losing streak, historically bad losing streak, there were competitive ball games that just did not go in their favor. At least you can chalk that up to being competitive. You can't even say that about this Jazz team. I'd argue that's a little worse, even with them having a 16-61 record right now. And then the Wizards, same thing. I mean, they have just one more win, whoop-de-doo. But over this stretch of time, as far as we're concerned, they quite literally hadn't won a game since March 16th, up until April 1st. In that time span, they hadn't, well, they got one. Okay. One. A single win out of single win out of 8 games. Okay, guys. You know, sure thing. Like a 15-point loss to the Blazers to open things up, as I mentioned, before losing to the Jazz by 16 as well. A loss to the Magic by 15 followed that. And then on a back-to-back, they caught the Knicks, who I guess were just sick and tired of losing to trash opponents and wanted to prove something. So they won by 19 in this ball game. Then they got their lone victory against the 76ers in a game that saw put up 24 points. Obviously, they suffered a historically bad defeat at the hands of the Pacers on March 27th. And then also, I guess, more competitively, they lost by 3 to the Nets before going outside, losing by 26 to the Heat despite Jordan Poole putting up 35 points. And despite Carlton Carrington also having a pretty solid game as a rookie, just did not do much of anything for them. So yeah, they are where they are. But that'll do it as far as the team breakdown of this particular time goes. There were some other developments here that took place, though, that I didn't get into. So to start, the Celtics earlier on in the past couple of weeks, they sold their ownership, the, I guess, company or so under the Gruzbeck collective. Those guys sold it to Bill Chisholm for a record $6.1 billion, the largest sale in history of sport. That's just madness. And again, this is coming at a time where, you know, the Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown deals are just starting to really kick in. You have other star caliber players that you're probably going to try to pay a shit ton of money. And I guess to an extent you can probably afford to dish out a couple more, I guess. But again, with the new second apron, you're going to have to be careful about that if you so choose to do it. The Grizzlies would severely miss Brandon Clarke, as with another injury, he would be set to miss the rest of the season. And I kid you not, like, Brandon Clarke is one of those players whose impact to the Grizzlies squad isn't necessarily defined by numbers. Like, yes, you can look at this and say that he has, honestly, put up the lowest totals in his career. Just 8.3 points per game, 5.1 assists, and 5.1 rebounds, and just a single assist per game are all career lows. I mean, that is certainly tough. At the same time, with the incorporation of different players like Zach Edey, you have to understand that they are trying to fill out a different sort of system here. I guess when Taylor Jenkins was at the helm, It just, like, what are you going to do? Santi Aldama has honestly seen his numbers go up while Clarke has been trending down. But still, his defense is something that is tremendously valued. And once they took him out of lineups, even as a bench player, things just got worse for them in many cases. Even with Jaren Jackson Jr. being the potential Defensive Player of the Year candidate that he is. So again, not necessarily a starter, but a good rotational piece that they have had around for quite a while now. And to lose that is impactful. The Celtics would have a brief scare as well as Jayson Tatum in the game against the Kings suffered an ankle injury against them, but he was brought back into it, so he ended up being okay. The Magic would induct Dwight Howard into their Basketball Hall of Fame. So I guess as a Ring of Honor member and now a Hall of Famer for that specific team, it honestly is long overdue if you really think about it. He accomplished so much with them. And again, granted, when you look at that just time span right there, and then you compare that with how the rest of his career went, I mean, literally, like I've said, things tailed off pretty much as soon as he left. So, as far as the Magic go as well, they could not really find a genuine replacement for Dwight Howard. He meant that much to the squad. So to honor him in this way makes sense. Jordan Clarkson would be out for the rest of the season with plantar fasciitis. Makes sense because, again, you need surgery for that. And even if he, gets a successful surgery and is able to come back in time, like there's just no way he's going to be up to full game speed at that point. Jazz don't have anything to play for, so it's not genuinely worth it. Gary Payton II would miss time with a torn ligament in his thumb. The Grizzlies will also make a decision, given what they had been going through, that really just confused me. I mean, yes, again, I detailed the fact that they were 2-8 over this time and that they were losing their grip on the standings. Still, they were looking like they could be a playoff team this season. They're right in the mix. They have one of the better records in the Western Conference. You would think that they would be content with that. And instead, I guess maybe they felt as though they were not and that they needed a change. So they decided for whatever reason to fire Taylor Jenkins. Yes, recuse him of his position. I don't understand it. Because here's the thing. In place of him, they would hire Tuomas Yazalo, who I guess multiple people in the NBA landscape have credited with turning around the Grizzlies offense and incorporating this kind of depth that they have on their team, putting it to use this consistently. But again, I don't know. You hire an offensive-minded, apparently, head coach. And I guess your problem with Taylor Jenkins, according to some people, it was defense and bad decision-making in clutch time situations. Well, how do you expect a first-time head coach to account for that any better now? Not to mention, biggest thing, there are so few ball games left in the regular season, and you're on the verge of making the playoffs, potentially trying to make a run. What the hell could Yazalo possibly offer you in the next couple of weeks that could lead you on the path to making a run for an NBA title, at the very least a deep playoff run? What would he be able to do in that moment that Taylor Jenkins couldn't? They'd be on the same path, right? like, why move on from him? After all, Taylor Jenkins is the winningest head coach in franchise history. And they just let that man walk out the door. I don't understand. Still, to this point, it's wild to me. LaMelo Ball would be ruled out for the rest of the season as he would get minor wrist and ankle procedures done, which ended up being successful per a recent report. But again, same case. They are relatively minor in nature, fine. But to try to ask that man to come back in and run the risk of re-injuring those things, no matter how small they are, they could have long-term effects. Made more sense to just handle it now and not let that linger over into the off-season, or at the same time, let him come back with those same issues and then miss more time at later points in maybe the next season as a result of it. You want to try to have LaMelo Ball as healthy as possible. Anthony Edwards would potentially suffer a facial injury, but he was also found to be all right in return to the Suns game. Trae Young would be hired as an assistant general manager for his alma mater, the University of Oklahoma, as he becomes the second active player to do it. Now, granted, Trae Young as an assistant general manager makes sense. I was going to say that if he was going to be the manager, the sole manager, general manager of this squad, that would be outlandish. As young as he is, and as dynamic of a player as he is in the league, like, bro, there could be so much stuff to stem from that. You don't want those issues. But as an assistant, I guess a kind of advisor of talent, maybe, it works best. He would also deal with an eye injury in the middle of one of their last games, but also returned. And yeah, that'll do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.